Radio Shack. Okay.
What?
The 80s called.
Welcome to the CoCo Nation, the world's first live and interactive talk show featuring the Tandy color computer and its hardware cousins. Hello, I'm David Ladd, and welcome to the CoCo Nation Show.
Hello, everybody. How's it going?
Hello. Good.
Welcome to episode 314. 30 years of NitrOS9, part 3.
We promise not to do this in real time.
And apologies up front if the chat doesn't quite work right today. Not sure why yet. Let's see. We have a panel full today. All right, starting, let's see who we got here. Starting upper left-hand corner, we have Deke.
Hello, everybody.
Hi. And next over, L. Curtis Boyle.
Welcome to the show, everyone.
Okay. And Rick Euland.
Howdy, folks.
Bill Astle.
Hello.
And forgive me if I mess up your names, I'm good at that. All right, next up, Bob Emery.
Hi, everybody.
And Sloopy.
Oh, that's me. Hi. Sorry, I was getting my pre-nap in.
Pre-nap, all right. Ken Waters, how you doing?
I'm here.
All right, next up, Marco.
I'm here.
Okay, and we'll do a character turn and a line feed. Ron Delvaux.
Please don't sing to me today.
Okay.
My birthday, that's why I said that.
Oh, we're singing for sure now.
But now we have to sing.
Now
That's right. That's
now
right.
that you've announced it.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll get Samuel Gimes to sing it for you because you know we know that you like his singing so much.
I was hoping that would happen.
I can sing just like Samuel, or well, as good.
There you go.
Hey, we got a last second update from Gimes. How about that? No.
Uh-oh.
All right, next over, yours truly. Let's see. Kevin Holloway.
Hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
we
we
can
can.
hear you.
Okay, good.
All right. Next up, David Ladd.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Hope you get to stick around for today's episode. It's going to be a NitrOS9 filled episode. Oh, yeah.
And last but not least, he who will snap through the whole show, Nick Marentes.
Hi everyone. I'm here for my 3-hour talk about the OS9 trash can.
And a fine trash can it is.
It is.
Okay, that was the introduction.
Hey, Nick, is it true that it's tomorrow where you are?
Yeah, it is.
My birthday's over.
That's right.
Already old.
Darn.
Nick celebrated yesterday, Ron.
Hey, Ron,
Yeah,
is it
actually,
Ron, I was wondering, is it your birthday today?
A little bit.
A little bit.
I'm going to be 70 next year.
Woohoo!
You have to do the math.
I called it.
Nice.
As
long as it's not 70 hacks.
Years experience.
Yeah.
Happy birthday
probably the oldest
to
one there.
you.
Jeez.
What happened to the rest of you guys?
We know we can't sing.
I'm not going to torture our audience. I don't think they'd like it.
Left
I
me
was
hanging.
respecting Ron's wishes.
Torture is my mom singing to me this morning just as I woke up from bed. Good morning to you. Oh no, happy birthday to you.
I think it's this cease and desist letter that we got that we're not singing.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't got a copy of that one yet. So, let's see. So today's topic of discussion, 30 years of NitrOS9. Curtis, that's your cue.
Yep. Part 3, which has actually been in the making for months now. Just trying to get everybody together, and still didn't quite manage to do that. So Tim Linder was going to try to be on. He's not going to be able to make it. Tormod, we're still hoping will come on. Last time I talked to him, he said he would be able to make it. So hopefully he'll be on shortly or soon.
Well, this show is all about herding cats.
Yeah, pretty much. Guy Major was hoping to be on, and he wasn't able to make it, though he did email me some responses to some of the questions I'll be asking our guests. So we'll I'll read those out loud once we get to those questions. So I'll just mention the ones that are on the panel right now, and these are the people that have been involved with NitrOS9 either as developers for the operating system itself or programs that run under it, or have made tools that are used to help produce some of the software under it. So we'll just mention them. Then we got Jeff, and I'm going to hopefully pronounce your last name right, Teunissen?
Teunissen.
So pretty close?
Close enough, right?
Yeah. I think most people in the Discord know you probably better as Deke.
Yes.
So I guess my one question for you right off the bat is, where did that nickname come from?
From the old BBS days, there was a major BBS on which I went as Dark Knight, not Batman related, but whatever. And everybody shortened it to DK. And then somebody just started calling me Deke. He's like, I'm not going to call you DK. I'm just going to call you Deke. And it stuck.
Okay. Secret origin story, folks.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up, and I'm just looking at the order I've got him on my Zoom, which is not the same as the viewers at home. So next up, I have David Ladd, which I'm sure our viewers are at least somewhat familiar with.
Oh, Lord. Yes. How can I help you, Curtis?
Where did your name come? No, I'm just kidding. But thanks for coming on the show. You're actually one of the people who helped get me back into NitrOS9 after my 10, 12 year vacation. So,
I did?
Yeah, you did. So, and you did a lot of testing for me and for some other people as well. So we'll get into that in a bit. And then next up, we have William Astle. You go by William or Bill? I should probably ask that.
William, usually.
Okay.
Yeah, Bill was my grandfather, you see.
And you've got a nickname too, Lost Wizard, which is actually the basis of the names for a lot of your software and tools and stuff that are all called LW something or other. And I was wondering, where did that name come from?
You know, I'm not entirely sure anymore. It does go back to as Muds, I think. It was I ended up picking up I got frustrated because the names I wanted to use weren't available, and I typed some stuff in. I ended up with Lost, and then I couldn't get that on another one, and I somehow it all coalesced, and then you end up with Lost Wizard, right? But it mostly comes down to fighting with usernames already being taken.
Yeah, this is at BBS days, or are you talking to like major, like emails or what?
I guess it would be BBS days, but it wasn't on BBSs. It was like MUDs, multi-user dungeons, that sort of thing. And then, of course, trying to sign up on websites if you need an account to do a thing, and then, oh, well, that's not available.
Okay, and as I mentioned before, well, hopefully Tormod will be able to show up a little bit later. So I want to do a bit of a shout out to those other people, because David Ladd was kind enough to go through all the logs and source code and check-ins and stuff on the repository for a bunch of other people involved with NitrOS9 over the last decade, that it's been out. So we'll say basically 11 years or so, roughly. And I'll just rattle off a few here that I took note of, and some of the things they did. So Aaron Wolf, who helped work on the DriveWire implementation for NitrOS9 itself. I think Boise's the one who created the original protocol. Bill Pierce, who's still active in the community, does a lot of stuff. He's kind of taken over Ultimuse and a few other things that he worked on some of the CoCo 3 FPGA stuff. Gene Heskett, a longtime CoCo person that I remember talking to him on the Echoes back in the 80s even. He worked on the level 3 updates for the new code base. Neil Crook, who helped fix up the source code for the new code base and added the Multicomp 09 FPGA machine build. Now, I'm not familiar with that at all. David or Jeff or William, are you guys familiar with that particular project?
Which project?
The Multicomp 09 FPGA.
Oh, I've heard of it. That's about it.
Okay, David, do you know anything about that? You kind of keep on
No.
top of FPGA stuff.
No, the only FPGA I have is the CoCo 3 FPGA, and I haven't used it in a while.
Okay. Now, the code base, I know from talking to Boise on part 2, I think they originally, when they converted it over from being natively done on NitrOS9 itself and making it cross-platform for compiling, etc., I think they went to Mamu first. Is that correct? And then it's kind of changed, I think, 1 or 2 times since then as far as what the base assemblers. I think actually for most people now it's Williams LW ASM that's the main development tool for that. Is that correct?
Originally, I don't know what it started with. I know when I joined the project, it was Mamau, or however you want to pronounce it. And after a few months is when Boise started the conversion to using LW ASM to build the modules and commands.
I think it's what most developers, except for people that are stuck in the 80s, like Bill and me. I think it's pretty well everybody uses that. Jeff, I'm assuming that's probably what you use for if you're doing assembly stuff.
I usually use RMA.
Oh, you actually do within NitrOS9 itself then, or?
I
Or
also
you're-
use the Linux compile of it.
Oh, okay.
But Mamu was written, I believe, by Boise, specifically to be compatible with the old OS9 ASM.
So the level 1 assembler, because RMA is the level 2 assembler, basically.
Well, it's not really level 1 assembler. It's just the single pass assembler.
Yeah, I call it level 1 because it was included with level 1 when you bought it.
Yeah.
And RMA, I don't think they sold. I don't think Tandy sold it anyway until level 2 came out. I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
RMA was actually written for the C compiler.
Yeah. And you, we'll get into that, but you're actually kind of like carrying the torch in that one and expanding it and doing all kinds of fun things with it. So some other people that were involved, Robert Galt, who did a lot of things. He helped with backporting the 609 modules that we'd done on the commercial version and the freeware version, and backporting the 6809. He did the 8 meg RAM disk drivers for the 8 meg upgrades, like the NoCan 3 from, why am I pulling a blank in his name? Ron, you know him.
Cool.
Paul Barton.
Yes.
And then Ed Snyder, of course, has an 8 meg version as well. So, and he's done a ton of other things too, just all over the place. Darren Atkinson, who created the CoCo SDC, actually worked on the CoCo SDC floppy hard disk driver. Guy Major, who unfortunately couldn't make it today. I'll get into his stuff when we get in there. There's a bunch of others I couldn't find emails for, and there's some that just have nicknames, and I have no idea who they even are. So I'll just name a couple of these. Some of them do have real names. I couldn't make it on the show. If you guys know who any of these people are, I'd love to know, because I don't have a clue. So LF Antoniosi.
Luis, I believe is his name.
Luis. Okay. Is he still active, do you know, or?
I haven't heard from him in a while.
Okay. Chris Ox, of course, we usually see him at CoCo Fest. Lothan. Anybody have a clue who that is? Afra, A-F-R-A. Oh. C-U, C-Y-O-U-S-E.
Chris Hughes, I believe is his name.
Oh, okay.
U-S-E?
Y-O-U-S-E.
Or Yaos.
And then PWZ.
PWZ?
Yeah.
That's Paul Zabalia.
Oh, okay. Anyway, like NitrOS9, even when we were doing it commercially, I mean, there was 4 of us involved with that. And then of course Boise took it over. And then when everybody else, when they made it a full open source project, I mean, a lot of people have come in and some have come and gone and some have stayed, like you guys. And I just wanted to give a big shout out thank you to everybody that was involved here to keeping the project going and keeping it advancing. So I've got 3 basic questions, and basically I'll just ask the question. We'll go round the table, get your responses to it, and then if anything comes up from your response, I might do some follow-up questions on more specific things. And I'll just go in the order that I'm seeing them on the screen here. So it'll be Jeff first, and then William, and then David. And if Tormod shows up, we'll throw him in there too. So the first one is, what projects over the last 10, 15 years have you done that are either part of NitrOS9 or the software that runs within it, or is related to its development tools? They could be like, stuff for manipulating disk images. It could be stuff about, assemblers, compilers, all that kind of stuff. So Jeff, you're first.
Oh God. There's, let's see. Well, there's the C compiler, DCC, the updated C compiler. Let's see. I've worked on Make. I ported Yak, which is it's an AT&T, it stands for Yet Another Compiler. It is a program for making parsers for any kind of language. So if you define a language, you can use this program to make a C program that can turn that language into meaning that the program can understand.
Okay.
It's like a tokenizer.
Okay. And that's a standard Unix tool, or?
Yes.
Because I know, like on the last couple of editions of EOU, for example, you've actually done quite a bit of porting of some of the Unix tools.
Yeah. Yeah, there's lots of other things that are useful for development that aren't necessarily meant for development, like SED. But yeah, I also ported Lex, which is a lexical scanner for compiler stuff. I needed that in order to port Yak, I believe. It was like either that or the other way around. I ported Yak so that I could get Lex.
A lot of codependencies here.
Yeah. Unix is very much based on you never write another program when you can use another as part of your program.
So almost everything you've done has pretty well been development tools. Now, one other thing I wanted to mention with DCC, and we'll get into more detail of that in a bit, but you're also doing documentation for it now. So you're expanding the documentation, actually creating a new manual for it as well.
Yes.
And just from my touching on the couple parts I've done for NitrOS9 itself, that's a lot of work. So I commend you for that.
The thing I really want to do with that is the initial chapter, where you can take somebody who's never done C and using OS9 or NitrOS9, walk them through producing a program.
Okay.
And then the rest is all about the differences and similarities and all of this stuff to understand the microware and / DCC compiler enough to give you ideas for what you can do with it, essentially.
Okay. So basically you're really focused on development tools.
Yeah.
That's pretty well your bread and butter. Do you have any stuff that's a little bit outside of that you also are working on, or is that pretty well, I mean, you've converted so many Unix tools, I'm sure that's probably taking all your time at this point, but
no, it's pretty much all development stuff, because I don't want to. It's just I've done like game stuff, and I'm just not doing that right now. I'm trying to be a plumber.
Yeah, you're fixing all the plumbing and adding to it and enhancing it so that all of the rest of us have decent tools to work from.
Exactly.
Now DCC, is that also work on stock OS9 if people want to go like right retro and go all the way back to 1986?
I believe it does.
I know there's been a few diehards I've seen on Facebook and stuff and saying, I don't want to touch this NitrOS9 stuff here. None, regardless of whether it's a CPU upgrade version or the 609 version, they want to play with the original.
Yeah, it should work on a standard CoCo.
Which I'd find about as much fun as running Windows 1, but okay.
Yeah, what is that? Shell Plus is great. Having a faster NitrOS9 kernel and stuff like that, that's pretty great. But it's basically NitrOS9. It's OS9, just a little faster, a little nicer, with more of the updates that have been put together over the years, so you don't have to go search them out yourself.
Yeah. Well, I know I've gotten like multiple people have mentioned even the EU project. A lot of them are using DCs. Like Fred Provanja wrote the new control panel in that, and I know he was asking you questions, stuff going back and forth, and he's quite enamored with it. So. And Bill's fiddled with it a little bit too. Unfortunately, Bill wasn't able to make it today. I invited him to the show, but okay, we'll get into more details on some of that stuff here in just a moment. But I want to get over to William now. I should mention Tormod just emailed me, and he asked me, "Can you send me a direct link to the Zoom meeting?" So I'm not sure if he just needs the meeting number and the password, or if he needs some sort of web thingy. So if anybody in the Zoom chat wants to give me if there's such a thing as a web link to it, send me that, and I'll forward it off to him. But William, the same question to you. So what projects over the last 10, 15 years have you done that are either part of NitrOS9 itself, or the software that runs within it, or related to its development, tools, et cetera, that you've done?
Well, it's mostly it's the LW tool stuff, I would think. But I did do, as I recall, a bunch of the heavy lifting on the initial conversion so that the project would build with the LW tools. I do remember that Boise merged that as this is the branch to use prematurely before testing anything. Yeah, I remember I spent quite a bit of time fixing up some compatibility things and so on in LWASM, and a few other things to make that work. Messed around with the make files to see if I could make it saner, and decided that was just going to make me more insane. So I decided to stop messing with that. But mostly, I think since then, I haven't really done much other than pop up in chats and go, hey, it kind of works this way, or whatever. Or serve as a sounding board, I guess, for assembly questions or whatever, which seems to have helped one or two people over the years. So I guess that's kind of useful.
Yeah. So LWASMs, is that part of the tools, or is that considered a separate thing?
Well, it historically it started out. I was frustrated with all the assemblers that existed because they all did everything I wanted but one thing, or they had one niggling problem. Like Mamu had issues with phasing errors on forward references, for instance. So I said, okay, I could make an assembler, and I bashed one out, got it working, and so that came first, the assembler. And then along the way, I was thinking, wait a minute, I could make a linker. That can't be too hard.
And down the rabbit hole you went.
As I said earlier, you make myself more insane, right? Although funny enough, the linker came together mostly in about 24 hours.
Oh, wow.
And then about 3 months of debugging.
Now, did you start LWASM before you got involved with the NitrOS9 side of things? Because it actually assembles stuff for disk basic as well, correct?
Yeah, I started it quite a while before. It was Boise actually discovered it and decided it was better than Mamu, and he didn't want to maintain that anymore. So he said, so he was the driving force for getting any attraction on converting the repository to build with something else, right?
Okay.
I do remember having a couple of arguments with him about features too. It's like he's like, "Well,
Feature
you should
creep,
make
you
it
mean,
work this
or
way."
just in general?
Well, he insisted something should work in a certain way that was totally illogical, but it's the way Mamu worked, right? And I was like, "Nope, it's not going to do that."
So he was striving for a backwards compatibility with his original. assembly.
Well, he didn't understand why it was a bad idea, and
Okay.
he pushed a little bit too hard. And I poked him with the well, you have the source, you modify it. he actually pushed just a little bit too hard. But yeah, the linker, even I think I had that before the NitrOS9 conversion as well. I can't remember the exact timing now. I just remember that there was a big spat about open sourcing things with one fellow. I can't remember who he was, and doesn't really matter. And there was a bunch of bad blood, and I just popped up and said, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is and inflict everything on people, and then I released it.
So, like looking time frame wise, like obviously we kind of covered when you guys were starting to do the transition from Mamu over to this, and you had to modify the assembler to handle like OS9 system calls and stuff, I assume. How long before that had you had LWASM out for Disk Basic? Was it years or months or?
Yes, I can't remember when the conversion started or when I released everything. So, well, I think the assembler I had it operational for a couple years before I released it. I had something working. I don't remember the exact timing, but it was a little while at least. That much I do remember.
Okay, so when you originally created that project, you had no intention of doing anything with OS9 NitrOS9 at that point.
No, I did intend to support assembling OS9 modules, but I didn't intend to end up being an infrastructure component of a project.
And then for those that aren't familiar with it, I mean, LWASM is kind of self-explanatory. It's an assembler, but what else is in the LW tools suite?
Right. So there's a linker that's LW link, and that obviously it links object files together. There's a proprietary but documented object file format, which allows it to do some things that older linkers didn't, like resolve complex references where you've got two things referenced on a line that are both external references. It can actually handle that, which is a great way to confuse people. There's also an archiver, so similar to the AR thing in Unix. All it does is just glue a bunch of object files together. You can put any files you want in it. It's nothing special. It's just basically it has a name and a length and the file bytes, and then a name and a length and the file bytes. And it's not clever. And a magic number at the start so that the linker can figure out what it's looking at.
Okay. Now, does it work on dragons and stuff too? Like I know they got different disk, image stuff, different formats than we do, especially with Dragon DOS. But I was just wondering, did you support that as well, or?
I don't remember if there was if I ever added an output format for that. If it's in there, it would have been contributed by somebody who actually knows the information. There's been a few contributions along the way for output formats. The Disk Basic one was the big one, and then OS9 modules, which is a right pain, especially since I actually made it so that the linker could build modules. that was one of the modifications for the NitrOS9 port, is there was some stuff built with RMA and such that was not building properly because there was bugs in something. But yeah, I don't remember exactly. There's been a lot of people saying, hey, can you add this or can you add that over the years? Some of it's been easy, some of it's been, I don't know how to do that. Give me documentation, and then nothing turns up.
Okay. And in both your cases, I think your main, like the assembler and the compiler, the C compiler, these are ongoing projects for you. It's not like you're done and here it is. But you actually do updates. You actually keep them up to date and add new features, as you mentioned. if sometimes it's not entirely possible to do so, especially with proper specs, etc. But these are active projects, not finished.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, by no means finished.
Yeah, in fact, I made a release on LW Tools during the fest, I think. So
yeah, and I know Jeff, like yours DCC compiler is a fair bit ahead of the EOU 1.0 release. So when I do the 101 bug fix update, I'll be including the latest version.
Yeah, my latest updates, I believe I've gotten, it's pretty close to C99. The preprocessor is pretty close to C99 now, which is the 10 years after ANSI.
Oh, so beyond that, I was about to ask about ANSI compatibility, because I know that's something that was being worked on even back by people before you on the original C compiler. But
yeah, the actual compiler is not compatible with ANSI yet. That's going to have to wait until I can get it finish getting it split back up into 2 passes.
Okay.
Which there is progress on. I've gotten a pass 1, which is basically the part of the compiler that reads the text of a C program and turns it into tokens.
Okay.
That part is pretty much working, I think. It's hard to tell because I don't have anything that can turn it into code. The code generator, which is pass 2, turns the tokens into assembly.
Okay. Now, William, we went from one direction. He did an assembler that originally worked with disk basic, and then added the OS9 stuff as he went along. And we've got CMOC, which is kind of a C-ish compiler that runs on both. Do you have any inclinations of making this so it can generate disk basic stuff at some point? Question for Jeff.
Oh, that's for me.
Yeah,
I think the compiler can do it now. Because of the ability to do absolute addressing. And I unlocked some other code recently that enables it to use the Y register as a variable. With that done, I think I can generate disk basic compatible code. There's just no front end or linker yet to build those and make that happen.
Okay. Because I do know, I don't know if it was used as much in North America, but I know on the Dragon, there was one software company in particular that wrote games, and they actually used the OS9 level 1 assembler to do all their Dragon DOS games. And they actually have little credits saying, we did this under OS9 level 1 and used ASM or whatever on their credit screen. So I was kind of curious if you were kind of steering the same way where it could be used as a cross-platform within the CoCo sphere.
Yeah, I think that if we made a new R-Link, essentially, that produced disk basic binaries, we could actually do that.
Yeah, because it's basically just preamble and postambles you got to kind of worry about as you go through, if I remember correctly.
Right.
Otherwise, it's just raw assembly.
You need a new C start, and you need a new linker.
It's actually less complicated than it sounds. to glue it all together and make it work, since all the linking stuff is already figured out.
Right.
And you
Yeah,
don't
just
have to
the
deal
actual
with
process of making the
you don't
binary.
have to deal with read-only modules either. You can have your data, doesn't need an initializer that copies it.
Yeah.
Yeah, C-start.
Hey, Curtis.
Yep.
60 said Crystal Computing Design maybe was
Yep.
doing the OS9 level 1.
Yeah, they made I think like the Battle Zone clone. That's actually probably the best Battle Zone we have on the CoCo 1, 2, Dragon 32, Dragon 64 platform. It's better than Rommel 3. It's called Rommel's Revenge. I think that was one. There was a couple others they did, but it was all assembled using the OS9 level 1 for the Dragon. Okay. I've been getting emails flying in from Tormod, so if I look a bit distracted here, he's having trouble getting Zoom to work, both on the online version, and then now he's downloaded the app, and now it's saying unable to join the meeting. The host requires authentication on the commercial Zoom platform to join, etc. So I've posted some of those in the Zoom chat. So if any of you Zoom experts in on the call here can maybe fire off some answers for Tormod, and I'll forward them off to him so we can get him joined in the meeting here.
I had that happen. I had to make an account on Zoom. That's
pretty well the prerequisite to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just email him that right now.
Use a throwaway email address.
Yeah,
Riveting, I know. Listen to me type.
that's to keep random people from bombing our meetings.
Which unfortunately we've had before.
Yeah, we have.
Okay, I made him the suggestion about using the throwaway email account too.
Zoom's pretty tame. I haven't had any spam out of them that I can recognize.
No, the only issue we had with Zoom was actually when COVID first started, and then we started getting those people that when they had that bug where they could just crash the call, and then we had people drawing crap
But I
over the
mean,
screen.
as
and
far as
racist
using
remarks.
personal email to get a Zoom account, I haven't had any backlash from that. Where
Oh, okay.
there are some things where you can identify, some sites. Wow, I'm glad I used a burner here, but not Zoom. So
Okay. Well, before I get to the third one here, I wanted to open up to the panel here. How many people on the panel here actually use either Williams or Jeff's tools, either the C compiler or the LWASM, whether it's for NitrOS9 or not? I'm just wondering for the developers here on the panel, how many here?
I use William stuff. It comes in handy for a few play things here and there.
I haven't yet, but I plan to.
Okay. I know I've used Williams LWASM too when I was teaming up doing the port of Attack of the Petsky robots, which I someday have to get back to. That was all done using LWASM as well. And I've done a little bit of fiddling with the DCC compiler, but not too much. I'm not much of a C guy. Sorry. But I have used some of the Unix utilities you ported.
They're nice.
Yeah. Sorry, who is that, Mark?
There's me. I pretty much have used LWASM always because it's the backend for both CMOC and the GCC 6809 patch that Brett Gordon uses. And so, basically Alcaron uses and Galaxy Server use LWASM behind everything else. And I'm going to learn his archiving tool because I think we need to make libraries for stuff. So they can be linked in when needed. Just doing strict assembler too. I use LWASM. So I have Robert Galt's patch for EdTASM, but I haven't really used it. And I don't really do much stuff on OS9 yet, so I haven't really used DCC yet. Although it's definitely the choice there instead of the native compiler.
Yeah. Just looking at the chat here, Fred Provancha actually said that he's used LW2s as well. And I know he uses DCC because like I mentioned earlier, he did the control panel and he's done some other he's done 3 or 4 programs, I think, with DCC so far that are actually in AOU. So a fractal drawing program was one. There was another one he did. I can't remember off the top of my head. Fred can remind me in the thing, but it's been actively used. And then both of them are really good at responding to user questions and user requests if you're on the CoCo Discord. I imagine they probably ask you in RC too, but are the two of you actively using RC much these days? Or
we're both in the channel.
Yeah, pretty much constantly. Just there's not much chat there these days.
Yeah, the last couple of times I went on, I actually would stay logged in for like 4 hours and see nothing, so I would just log back out again. So maybe
I have
once
a thing
the
that keeps me logged in, so I
maybe
can see
once
back
the
chat.
network cards are out and we already have a native IRC chat client that Todd Walls did. I think right now it has to go through DriveWire, but he's planning on extending it to use the network card. So maybe people actually on their CoCos can join in the chat. That'd be kind of cool.
Looking forward to that.
Fred says, "Yeah, DCC is awesome. Thanks for your work on that, Deke."
Thank you.
Now, I've mentioned that Jeff, you've done a fair bit of extensive documentation. That's an ongoing project for you, just like the NitrOS9 stuff is for me. William, I haven't had a chance to go through too much of the documentation, but I imagine it's probably pretty robust for the LW tool set as well. Or
Well, there is a reasonably complete manual. It doesn't teach you how to do assembly or anything like that. But some of the newer tweaks and stuff aren't in there. But there's enough that you can actually figure out how to run the thing, at least theoretically anyway. And it documents the object file format, among other things.
okay, and do the two of you have an official kind of a beta testing regime that you go through? Like, do you have certain people that you send off a version of it to test out if you do anything, or you do your own testing, or you just let it in the wild and then you wait for the reports to come in, or how does that work?
I do extensive testing myself before I upload to GitHub, but once it's on GitHub, just let it all come in.
And William, same thing, or?
Yeah, I do, depending on what I'm messing with, I'll do fairly extensive testing. I haven't done a lot of invasive stuff recently, so it's relatively easy to tell if you broke something because you modified 3 lines of code most of the time. There is that 3 lines of code somewhere that will, take the entire project apart, I'm sure. But I haven't tripped on it yet. Keyword yet. But generally, if I'm working on a bug fix, I might get the person that reported the bug to test it to make sure it fixed it. But otherwise, I'll generally throw it out there on the public repository, and eventually I'll get around to making a release that includes it.
Now, William, I want to ask you specifically, because you've actually done a few other things in the CoCo scene too that involve assembly, like the Dagrath stuff that you did. Did you use your own assembler for that, or was that done before?
I did. Actually, Dagrath suggested a few modifications to the assembler to get things to be a little more sane, so you could figure out what it was. Because all the graphics in there is it's structured bytes, but it just looks like a bucket of bytes. So in my source, I modified it with some macros to make it a little clearer what it was doing. So I definitely used LWASM for that. And then another one is I recovered disassembled the source for Temple of Rom.
Oh, right. I forgot about that one.
For the original author with his blessing. So, and that, of course, he's using LWASM on that too.
Yeah, I think he used LWASM to do the Temple of Rom 2, his sequel version that he put out, didn't he? I think it was based on your disassembly.
On the original disassembly.
Yeah. And of course, you're writing your ports of Unix tools that are originally written in C with DCC, correct?
Yes. Although anytime I do assembly stuff, I tend to use LWASM for that. Like I was working on the Mega Mini MPI serial driver. I use LWASM for that.
Okay. I use a mix of things depending on what I'm doing. Like if I'm doing just a quick little small utility in assembly, I'll just fire up the assembler right native in OS9 because it's not that slow if you overclock it in an emulator or something. But on larger projects like the Attack Petski robots, which is fairly large program with a lot of data tables, yeah, I used LWASM because the standard assembler wouldn't be able to handle it, or you have to shrink all your labels to be 2 characters long or something to get the symbol table to fit. Or so
Yeah, you don't end up doing like was it Todd with his novels as labels?
Yeah, those
Yeah.
are crazy. The labels go all the way to the right of the screen.
Yeah, you need like 500 columns just to fit a line. Yeah, that's where self-documenting code's getting a little too far for me to handle.
I see we have a John Doe in here.
Would that be a Tormod John Doe? Did he make it?
Let's see.
It's muted, whoever it is. Oh, not muted now.
Yes, hello.
Hello, we hear you. Is that Tormod?
Yes, that's me.
Oh, welcome, Tormod. Sorry for the trouble of getting you on here. So you probably haven't had a chance to watch the show because you're busy trying to get Zoom working. So welcome to the show. We've got Jeff and William on here too as well. Deke and Lost Wizard, if you might know them by their handles. But we'll have to kind of catch you up here a bit, Tormod. So I guess the first thing is, where are you? Because you're actually not in North America. Oh, did you lose the audio? Can you hear us?
I'm not already all set up here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Can you hear us?
Unfortunately, I have the CoCo Nation website open, so I hear like an.
Oh, you're hearing an echo? Yeah, I just killed that. Nobody watches it anyway.
Okay, that's better. Yes, I'm located in Europe, Switzerland.
Okay. So the first question I asked our other panelists here was, what projects over the last 10, 15 years have you done that are either part of NitrOS9 or software that runs within NitrOS9 or is related to its development tools, etc.? And you're kind of like the main guy in charge of the official version right now, aren't you?
Well, kind of. I got into this like 10 years ago. I started, well, should I take the whole story?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to get this for posterity, so yeah, go for it.
Yeah. It was 10 years ago. I picked up the Dragon again and kind of continued where I went off from childhood, and I started with digitizing old tapes and stuff I had in the attic. And then I soon went on the internet and discovered new cool things like the XROAR emulator and DriveWire, which sounds really cool. But I didn't really understand everything about DriveWire, NitrOS9, HTTP DOS, but I got into all this, and I actually started with something on the Dragon. You have this deload command, the same as you have on the CoCos.
Yeah, so you can download a program off its serial port, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, kind of similar to DriveWire. But what is interesting is that the Dragon ROM has the deload command and the logic how it hooks up into the cassette loading functions, but it doesn't have the serial port code or the bit banging code.
Oh, okay.
So I made a modified Dragon ROM where I included the bit banging routines from DriveWire. So I had deload running. But this was fun, but then I opted for going more like a standard way of using DriveWire, and I ended up like porting HTTP DOS to Dragon.
Okay.
And for this, yeah, I had a Dragon 32, so I started looking into making a memory expansion. I made like actually I wanted to make a ROM cartridge, but I was thinking, why not make it a RAM cartridge? And then I could was able to run HTTP DOS with 64K, which was like fantastic. I mean, I only had like a Dragon 32 all my life, and tape player, no disk drives. So this was really fun. And this kind of drove me into the natural direction of looking at NitrOS9, which at that time was how should I say it? It was not in good state. It was like a public repository, but things didn't build. There were several branches in the repository. There were it seemed like there had been a lot of work going on, but then it was kind of abandoned. And I started trying to get this to work, and then since I have been working many like open source projects and doing a little bit of say gardening of software, I started to tidy up things and try to join all these branches together, and I also noticed there are some regressions that have found their way in there, and I try to tidy up everything and make it build again. And so,
now, just to interject for a second here, was this kind of, we were talking about this earlier before you joined the call, but there was that transition between Mamu and then going over to LWASM. Is that part of what was causing the problem with the builds?
Yes, that was part of it. There was like a LW Tools branch, and there was the old Mamu branch, and they had diverged into different ways, and things had been committed to one branch and not the other. So it was not just a simple task to bring this all together. So I spent quite some time on this, and then since then I've been kind of the main maintainer of it, trying to keep things running and building, and taking in patches from people, and sometimes not taking in patches from people because they will break things.
Yeah, I had a few of those, and
yeah.
Yeah, I've been trying to submit patches to you. I'm like, one thing we were discussing too, it looks like there hasn't been an official release. I know those nightly builds you guys do. Do you have a plan at this point as to when the next official release, or do you need some more patches for me? I know I haven't quite sent you everything yet because I've got some debugging for 1.01 that I'm working on now, stuff that was found in the wild once it went out.
No, I'm actually wanting to make a release before I get too much new stuff in. It's been dragging over years, right? And people who's been watching this repository see there's not so much going on, and I consider it now very stable. It's like it's a very good time to make a release. It's been that for years now, but it's not much too new coming in lately, and it's been tested by many people, so it's time to make a new release, and then afterwards pour in some of the new stuff from you guys.
Okay, cool.
At the same time, I'm also maintaining the tool shed together with Tim Lindner and Boise, and I think the first thing on the agenda is to make a release of a tool shed.
Okay, and for our listeners and watchers here that aren't familiar with Toolshed, what exactly does that entail? Like, what is Toolshed basically? Yeah.
Well, it's the tools for making disk images and all the other small operations that goes into building a disk image of NitrOS9. I mean, it's not uniquely for or reserved for NitrOS9. It can be used for many things, but it is an essential part of building NitrOS9 apart from the assembly, just to put all these images, build these disk images.
Yeah, because it actually handles making virtual hard drive images. It also handles doing disk basic images, etc. And you can even transfer stuff between the two different formats.
Yes, exactly, and a few other things also. You can also make some tape WAV files, WAV files.
Okay. I didn't realize
all-
Tim was still involved with that. So that's kind of cool.
He is, yeah. And I mean, this is over the last years. It's not like everybody's working full time on this, but it was not too long ago. Both Tim and Boise were involved in adding more code and fixing up stuff in Toolshed.
Okay.
And the second component, naturally, for building NitrOS9 is the LW tools by William.
Yeah, and from my understanding too, this is the first time you guys have ever actually seen each other.
Yep, definitely.
Now, since Guillaume Major couldn't make it, but he sent me some email responses. This is why I was going to interject these in here when Tormod was on, so I'll kind of get this caught up too. So what projects has he done over the last 10 to 15 years? He said he fixed a few bugs in the Sierra's CoCo ported the AGI engine, the adventure game interpreter from Sierra. He's ported all of Sierra's official AGI games and 10 AGI fan games. And then he's also built NitrOS9 archives for DriveWire, the Becker port, CoCo SDC, and DrivePack. Now, Becker port is Gary Becker's, the guy who did the CoCo FPGA. That's kind of a virtual port, if I remember correctly. I'm not that familiar with it. And then DrivePack, I think, was Roger Taylor's. Is that a kind of his version of DriveWire or something? Does anybody know what that is?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay. And then the next question I'll give to Tormod as well to finish catching him up. And then I'll read the response I got from Guillaume as well. So how did you get involved with NitrOS9, and did you use it back in its commercial days or once it became open source, or I think you kind of mentioned you kind of stumbled on it just when you were getting your Dragon up and running because NitrOS9 level 1 had been released by that point. Because of course, when we did it originally as a commercial product, it was level 2 and 609 only, and that's completely changed over the years.
Yes, back in the days, as I said, I only had this Dragon 32. There was no way you could run any real operating system on that, and I didn't have a disk drive. I heard about something called OS9, but I didn't look into it.
Yeah, because it needed 64K pretty well for that at that point. And that actually, I guess I haven't really asked Jeff or William that either. So, how did you guys get involved with NitrOS9/OS9? I guess both of them, because I think, William, you mentioned you did toy with OS9 back in the day, and then I don't know how you got directly into NitrOS9. Was that just because of the assembler, or?
It was, I guess that was part of it. I ended up in some sort of online chat at some point where people were talking about OS9 stuff, and then I stumbled into the NitrOS9 stuff and poked around with it for a bit. So I went, okay, so this is OS9 now, so this is cool. But mostly I ended up back into the scene after DriveWire came out. I picked up a DriveWire cable and the software from Cloud9, and then I messed around with getting that to work and discovered that it didn't work, and had to find other things to figure out why it didn't work. You know, all that jazz. I messed with that for a bit. Then I got bored and went on to a new shiny. But back in the day, I don't remember why, but I ended up with OS9 level 2, the official one from for some reason on a CoCo 3, and I messed around with that quite a bit back in the day. Banged my head on not understanding how you make a OS9 boot file properly. As the documentation was, let's just be honest, Tandy's documentation was garbage, or Microware's documentation on that part of it was garbage.
Yeah.
It was incomplete, and that's the best you can say about it. It was written by someone who knew how it worked intimately and didn't understand where people would trip on it, right?
Yeah.
So it was. I was kind of relieved that config program thing existed, even though it was slow and cumbersome. I never really got past, just build something that handles a double-sided disk drive and all of that, and then just mess with things, right? I never had a great system for OS9. I never had a hard drive or anything like that back in the day.
Okay. And then Jeff, how about you? Did you use OS9 back in the day before you got into?
Oh, I
NitrOS9?
did. I bought secondhand a floppy drive for my CoCo 2 at the time, which it came with 64K, so I didn't have to worry about that. But as soon as I had a floppy drive and it was an OS9 boot disk, and I was like, wow, this is all there is. I don't care about anything else. That was the last time I used basic or disk basic.
So this is level 1 you were talking about.
This was level
2.
1, yeah. I was all in as soon as I had anything to do with it, because it was a real operating system and you could do real stuff with it.
Now, had you already been using Unix or Linux at this point when you just
No, this was in 1988. I just barely had access to a public access Unix system in about a year earlier, over 300 baud modem. And
woohoo,
I didn't,
speed.
yeah, blistering. But yeah, I didn't really get it at the beginning. But once I'd gotten into OS9 a little bit, it started to make a lot more sense. And that got me into like System 3 Unix and System 5, and then eventually Linux and things like that. When I finally got a CoCo 2 or CoCo 3 in, I think, 91.
Also, like right near the end of its life type thing.
Oh, yeah. Also secondhand. It came with no screws. And discovered level 2. Then I had no longer had any use for a CoCo 2. So I sold that to a friend and got a CM8 and all the fun stuff. And that was pretty much my work system, my workaday system, until I eventually got a PC in like 93 or 94 or something like that. But I never really left the CoCo, never really left programming stuff on OS9. That was why I did it. I wanted to code. Everything involved in the CoCo was always about code.
Okay, so did you actually get the C compiler back then too, and
I did
RMA
not.
and that kind of stuff? Oh, you didn't. So you were just using like the Basic 09 that came with level 2, or
I was using Basic 09. I did some stuff with XLisp. I wrote a version or an interface to the display codes for XLisp, and did that for a while. I don't think I ever uploaded it anywhere, and I don't think I have that disk anymore, but it exists somewhere.
that'd be nice to get that on the archive, just for posterity's sake.
But I wrote a lot of Basic 09. I think I messed a little bit with small C, but it wasn't very good and it was very slow. And so I would always go back to Basic 09, which I always used with the walrus operator, and not the standard basic equals operator, because I was obsessed with Pascal.
Colon equals.
Yeah.
So how did you get into NitrOS9 then?
Not until 2005, 2006. I discovered Boise's CoCo OS9 repository. It eventually got added when you gave him your source. I discovered
that was 2003. I think I did that, and then Alan DeCock helped him convert some of it to Mamu back then. I remember that.
Yeah, but that was my first real introduction to NitrOS9 because I did not have a 6309 in any of my CoCos.
Yeah. So by
I
that
do
time,
now.
they had started backporting it to the 6809 already. So that's what you worked with, or did you get a 609 by 2004 or 5?
I didn't get a 6309 until probably 2014, 2015.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a question for Tormod and William too. Did you guys, when you guys started working with NitrOS9, did you guys do the 639 version, or did you guys use the 689 version? And what do you use today if you're still using it?
Yeah, I can start. I'm not the one who has used NitrOS9 the most. I spend more time nurturing the code and the building and making it build, not so much running it. And I have bought some 6309 processors, so I have tried it a little bit, but not much. I pretty much stay to the standard 6809. But actually, I could add that I also spend a little time on getting both 6809 and 639 builds to work, to build and work.
So you generally probably use emulators more for your side of things, I would guess.
That's true. Also because then I can get to work on this while traveling. I cannot drag my dragon along all the time.
Yeah, especially considering it's getting hard to find monitors at, TVs at hotels you could actually plug it into.
Yeah.
And William, in your case?
I did mess around with the 6309 stuff when I got back into things. Then I mostly got out of messing with the actual physical hardware due to space limitations, among other things.
As we can tell, looking at your background.
Yeah. Then I started messing around with other things that needed to work on any old machine, so I couldn't rely on the 6309 stuff. So then I kind of got back out of it, but I do mess with it occasionally. And if I'm gonna bring up NitrOS9 on something, it's probably going to be the 6309 version, just because of the generally improved performance, among other things.
Yeah.
And I can bring up an emulator with either processor, no problem. So
yeah.
So if I was going to mess with it, I'd probably do that. But yeah, I do have a machine that has a 6309 in it, in a box. It has no screws in it and no keyboard, and
what are these things called screws you guys keep talking about?
I think it's something Tandy originally installed.
Well, I do remember removing them from this one because they were getting in the way of taking things apart. But yeah, it's I did use the 6309 stuff. I picked up a couple from Cloud9 way back. I think before I was even messing with LWASM. So I've been aware of it for quite a while, at the very least.
Okay. I'll just read Guillaume's response to. He said, I didn't know either OS9 or NitrOS9 before returning back to the CoCo scene around 2003. I got involved when he began porting the AGI games. So that was his whole impetus for getting into that. Now, since you guys are mentioning stuff about emulators stuff, because it's a lot easier to work on stuff you can overclock and whatever else, I was just wondering, snapshot of today, what is your emulator of choice? We'll go Jeff, then William, then Tormod.
I use
and
a
why?
custom MAME.
What's that?
I use a MAME with a little bit of a custom thing that I can, under software control, kick it up to 10 times normal speed. And then bump it back down when I want it to be slow, things like that.
Cool. But do you keep that up to date with all the MAME releases, or do you have a stable one that you kind of stick with?
Right now, I think I'm on 237 or something like that. I do keep it is a patch that I apply to any new version I get into it. I just haven't bothered recompiling recently.
Okay. William?
I usually use MAME just because it's got the the debugger that is really useful when you're debugging a custom ROM that you have been messing with and have never actually released anywhere. Occasionally, I'll use XROR as well, as I find that it tends to emulate some stuff quite a lot better, with a lot less weirdness. But it's also a little bit of a challenge to get it configured the way you want it to the first time. I think 60's been working on that.
Yeah. And then Tormod?
Yeah, for me it's XROR all the way. I love 60. That's
Yeah,
what I
usually he's
started
in the
with.
chat. I don't know if he is today. I haven't seen him yet,
Yeah.
but I haven't been monitoring that close. Now I know he's got an external debugger in XWAR now. Tormod, have you or William used the external debugger? I'm just wondering how it compares to MAMES.
What I'm using with XROR is GDB, the GNU debugger, which is a general tool for all kind of platforms. And luckily, 60 he built a small GDB support stub inside XROR, and that's quite cool.
Have you tried that, William, in your case? Or
I haven't. I every time I've done anything with GDB, I've just like bounced right off it. I find it too cumbersome for what I've needed to do with it most of the time. It's fine for debugging a C program or something like that on a Unix box, as long as you've got the debug symbols and the source code. But I find it too cumbersome when I need to get into detailed stuff, and when I need to actually stop the code running in an interrupt or something like that.
okay, and Jeff, have you fiddled with GDB with XWAR?
Not with XROR, no. I use it a lot for debugging my code. But I don't use it directly. I go through a front end called DDD, which is a motif based debugger front end that does all the fancy stuff.
Yeah,
Okay.
GDB is very command line oriented, and but there's like this user interfaces that you can tap on top, like this DDD. I can also mention that over the last months, I've been looking at importing symbols into GDB from the files generated by LW tools, so that I can make breakpoint at labels, not figuring out
Not
or
addresses.
looking up the address, but directly on labels. I find this very useful for I've been debugging a lot on Fusix lately.
Okay, got a couple comments from the chat here I'll mention. Plus, Mark, if you've seen any stuff on the other chats that aren't coming through.
Yes, I have a lot.
Okay, I'll just do a couple quick ones here. So first of all, Tom Eric Anderson says, Tormod, you live in Switzerland, but you are Norwegian, correct? Oh, you're muted.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And then Fred Provanges has a comment. He said, I bought OS9 from Radio Shack in 1988 after reading glowing reports about it at Rainbow. The advertisement of the Radio Shack catalog bragged about how you could use the full 64K workspace, and that got me very curious about it. So I bought it. I loved it. And for me, there was no turning back. It was OS9 after that, same as Jeff, same as me. And then Mark, you want to bring in some stuff from the chats that you've been monitoring?
Yeah, so a couple that you missed on Facebook and on YouTube. So Mr. Dave 6309 said Williams Assembler has made programming in assembly a pleasure. Tech Todd, that's Lord Dragon, said also CoCo IRC was written for and built with LW tools. Oh, he also said he resents those comments about his comments. Grin. Frederick Pravancha also said DCC is awesome. Thank you for your work on that. Let's see, another comment from Mr. Dave about LW Assembler makes 6809 assembly fun experience. Tech Todd, LW tools and Toolshed disk management tools are my go-to for dev. And Frederick also says thank you for Toolshed as well. So actually, I use that too with stuff. So I appreciate it. Oh, and I have a Moo, but I've never plugged it into anything yet. So anyway, I will someday.
It's like Lord Dragon, we're fine with your with your comments, but your labels are out of control.
There's probably a couple more in here, but I haven't found them yet again. So I'll keep looking. Get back to me.
Okay. A couple of Rick Yoland says OS9 Level 2 first appeared as a boot disc on new Tandy games. It was interesting to try level 1 utilities on a Tandy game. I do remember the story that Kevin Darling them actually jury rigged a sort of a hodgepodge of level 1 and level 2 because they took Rogue, because that came out a month or two, 2 months, I think, actually, before level 2 itself got released.
Right. It showed up on CompuServe, so I had to play with it too. And yeah, it worked, sort of.
Yep, sort of. And then Facebook user, I don't know if that's Mark Siegel or somebody else, but he said the screws were there for shipping purposes.
That sounds like a Mark Siegel thing. I got a couple more comments here from a few people.
Okay. Also, Tormod disappeared. Is he still on the call, or?
I should be back now.
I think his video is gone. Right?
Oh, there he is. I see him on the top row there. I don't know. Mark, did he just get knocked off the panel?
Okay, I'm looking. You find him. I'll add him back in.
Put him back.
Okay, Mark, go ahead with the questions in the meantime.
So Curtis, 60 said he's in the chat. He's just hidden from your eyes. So yeah, he's been making comments. And he did say hi to Tormod also. Mikey N6IL, that's Pi Drivewire Mikey. He says, sure on all these projects, DCC, LWASM, Toolshed. And Tech Todd says, yeah, out of control is how I roll.
Okay, next question for everybody, and I'll save games to the last. What projects, if any, are you working on now that are related to NitrOS9 or its development? And do you have any future projects in the work that you would like to talk about or maybe get feedback on? And I'll just go in the order of Jeff, then William, then Tormod.
Well, let's see. Right now, I'm continuing to work on splitting up the compiler into 2 passes to eventually get it to ANSI and hopefully ISO compatible. Let's see. I'm always looking for more C code out there. If anybody's got any source code that they have, even if it doesn't work, I'll find a way to make it work. Archiving old source, like collating it and putting it into its proper time for just to archive it for posterity.
Yeah, just to bring that up, you've actually researched like the original C compilers in the Make program as the CoCo got them, and you found their ancestors basically on other platforms, right?
Yeah, that's actually what I like. All of the ports that we have of other stuff, I've been looking for the original versions of that so that I can figure out where it came from, what exactly was changed to make it port to the CoCo, and hopefully using that to apply the same patches to newer and newer versions so that we get the updates from further versions of those softwares.
Okay. And obviously your documentation is an ongoing project as well.
Yeah. Was like for
William?
the second year in a
sorry,
row, I missed the deadline for printing copies of it.
Oh yeah, because you were planning on bringing printing copies to the fest there. I think
Yeah.
you'd mentioned, yeah. I just don't bother promising that ever. You can download the PDF. Anyway, sorry, go ahead, William.
Yeah, I don't really have anything on the go or planned related to NitrOS9 at the moment. Mostly, I guess it's if somebody trips on a problem in LW tools that needs fixing or something like that, then that's the sort of thing I'll poke at. Or if someone has questions about how the processor works or something, I guess. But I don't have any actual projects.
Okay. Now, is that because you're kind of running your own business now and you're super busy, or are you just kind of taking a break, or are you doing this basic stuff or other stuff entirely, or if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I've kind of got sidetracked with new shinies all over the place. I'm really good at starting projects, and so if you need someone to start a project, I'm your guy. If you need someone to finish the project, less
on finishing them up.
So which makes it even more impressive. LW tools actually happened. So no, I've been distracted by other stuff, and I got sucked into a game too. So that took
Is it a mud perchance?
No, it's not. I won't mention what it is either. It's we can talk about it on Discord or something and off topic, but it's not really relevant here.
Okay. And then Tormod?
Yes, first I want to thank William for his work on GCC for 6809. It's also much appreciated. Now, for my plans about NitrOS9, obviously it is this release thing, right? We want to have some more releases and incorporate all the good stuff from the ease of use distribution, and kind of make sure that we have a common NitrOS9 repository where that people can know they get all the right stuff and use this for building applications on top.
Okay. I'm assuming like Jeff, your DCC is part of this too, like it'll become part of the distribution, is that?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay. Do you know, Tormod, are you planning on including DCC and stuff in there as well? Or?
I'm not familiar with that project. I understand it's a C compiler. I find that really cool. I think we would probably like to have that inside the repository. But I mean, if people are working on their software and maintaining it separately, that's fine too. I mean, that's doesn't have to absorb everything. I think it's more important that we have the operating system foundations maintained in NitrOS9.
Agreed.
Yeah. Now I can also add that I have ported NitrOS9 to my Mu memory extension card and level 2, and this is also something I would like to come more back to. I've been sidetracked by working on Fusix on Dragon and CoCo, and eventually I will get back to NitrOS9. I think it's also interesting to talk a little bit about Fusix and compare it to NitrOS9. It's a more complete and true Unix. This also means it takes more resources, and I think for these machines, I find NitrOS9 is a better fit. It's more the sweet point there of resources available. So I kind of find NitrOS9 technically as interesting as Fusix. It's just that I've always been a fond admirer of Unix, and I really like to run a Unix kind of operating system on my computers, on my old Dragon computers and CoCo computers.
Okay. Now, just for those people that don't know what it is, what exactly is the Mu? I know what it is, but I just for the viewers and listeners that aren't familiar with that.
It's an expansion card that fits into the cartridge slot that has 512 Ks of RAM and a ROM slot and a SD card interface. So here you go. Yeah, and it actually is. The SD card goes through a SPI interface, so it's actually has an SPI interface, and the memory management system is the MMU is pretty much compatible to what you have in the CoCo 3. So
and this actually works on like a Dragon 64, CoCo 1 and 2, right? Like this is meant to upgrade
Yeah,
those to
Dragon-
512K within.
yeah, Dragon 32 even. So I mean, I had a precursor to this, which also had 512K, but that was more like a banking version of the first 32.
Like 32K, like the old
Yeah,
who the heck
yeah,
used
yeah.
to make them. Yeah.
Yeah,
VidRAM
yeah.
Corp was one
Yeah.
I remember off the top of my head, but yeah.
And I built that initially to get something working with physics, but then I wanted to go further and make something that I could run NitrOS9 level 2 on. And then I decided to make it as close as possible to the memory management of the CoCo 3.
Yeah, because then the drivers are, a bit more done already, ready for you.
Yeah. The port was relatively simple, actually. I mean, it runs fine. It doesn't have the graphics as the CoCo 3, but the rest, the command line interface.
Do you have a windowing system? Can you have multiple VDG screens running at the same time? Did you go that far? Or?
I didn't go that far. It should be pretty feasible to have several text screens switch between. Like
that's something I always wanted to implement in level 1. Actually, is because it's if a text screen and there is only 512 bytes, it's not that big.
But that would be a long-term goal for me to make some kind of, or for someone else, to make a simple graphical interface for say, for the Dragon or CoCo 2. So that you could do some, maybe a small windowing system or something like this.
Okay. Now, just fill in from Guillaume here. So his response to projects he's working, he says he's not working on any NitrOS9 projects now, but he would like to eventually port other AGI fan games, because I guess there's more than the 10 he's already done. And so we went back and forth on a couple questions. I'll just do these here, so we're got everything that Guillaume sent me. And I asked him, I said, have you ever thought of creating your own homebrew or fan game using the AGI engine? And he said, yes, but developing an AGI game requires good artist skills to make backgrounds and sprites for animations, which unfortunately I don't have. I know exactly what he means. I was trying to create an arcade game recently, and I had the same problem. Then I asked him, have you thought of making a program for creating an AGI game, either under NitrOS9 itself or via a host operating system to target the CoCo? He said, no, there's already very good AGI editors out there like AGI Studio and WinAGI that have been ported on multiple platforms. It would be kind of redundant. And then the last one I asked him was, any thoughts on making a 639 optimized version of the engine, something that I thought about myself and actually made some notes in the source code. Just not sure when I get to it, because like Jeff and William and Tormod, I have a ton of other projects going at the same time, competing for my attention. And he said the AGI port in the CoCo could definitely benefit from a 639 optimized version. Rooms that have larger sprites tend to slow down the game. I often had to modify game scripts to enable some animations at certain times only. However, I think the best improvement would be to allow background music by supporting one of the several sound devices, but it involves playing with interrupts and precise timing, and I'm not quite there yet. So that's from Guillaume. So I guess I guess that's pretty well all the questions I had. We kind of got a history of what's happened in the last 10 years with you guys, and it's great to hear from Tormod that a new version of the official repository of NitrOS9 will be coming out. That'll cover NitrOS9 level 1, 6809, 609, Dragon, CoCo, the whole bit, the Moo board, etc. So looking forward to seeing that. Do you have a timetable on that, Tormod, or just soon?
No, I don't. It's been dragging on for some years, so don't hold your breath.
Okay. And then just any final thoughts on NitrOS9 or development for NitrOS9 or developer tools from the three of you? And have you used each other's stuff? I guess that's another question.
Oh, I use NitrOS9. I use LWASM. One thing it might be useful. I did not learn C until about 2000. So I doing the compiler stuff. It's never too late.
Is that a hint to me, perhaps? William, any final thoughts?
Not really. I think we've pretty much covered everything. I'd probably be using DCC or whatever if I was doing anything that targeted OS9 or NitrOS9. It seems like the best available option that we have at the moment, and it looks like it's going to get better as time passes. So it seems to be where it's at. Like I toyed with the thought of building a C compiler type thing for LW tools, and then went, wait a minute, somebody else got there with CMOC and and everything else. I'm like, and am I going to actually put the focus in to actually get it done? Probably not. So
This is that starting projects thing again, isn't it?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And
I'm
oh, sorry, go
trying
ahead.
to I'm trying to not start a project with I'm occasionally trying to convince William to accept RMA style source code for LWASM,
And how's
because I
that
don't
going
want
so
to
far?
maintain I don't want to maintain a Linux version of the assembler.
The problem is I don't know how compatible the internals are to make it happen. That's I think that's where the stumbling block is. There's no particular reason we can't add a pragma that has a different source format or something like that. It's just I find the way RMA does things highly illogical, and I just can't wrap my head around it.
Just need to write a preprocessor that takes the RMA and cranks out LWASM, and then you run it through the normal process.
Possible.
Well, that might
yeah.
work, but then you run into some of the compatibility problems as well on the internals. So I haven't actually tried it, and it's mostly because I don't have a particularly big interest in doing it.
Yeah.
But like in principle, it could be done. I just don't know how invasive it would be in the internals.
I think
and
that-
Tormod
that-
in. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, the only difference really is that I think the RMA uses like a Unix style way of formatting itself, like the actual source code. So like when you have a label, if it's a global label, it ends in a colon. If it's local, it doesn't. That's it.
I think there is support for that already in there. But it's all of that, the PSEC business that it does that
Yeah.
I've never
Yeah,
been able to
PSEC,
wrap my
VSEC,
head
it's a-
around.
CSEC is the weird one.
What's that, defining constants?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you discover you need some way to define constants in your object files after enough time fiddling with projects.
Hey, Tormod, any final thoughts from you on?
Well, I look forward to testing out DCC on NitrOS9 level 2 on my Dragon. It will be really fun to compile C code on my Dragon. That would be fantastic.
Especially with the Moo there, where you've got enough RAM to properly run it.
Yeah.
With larger programs.
I need to make sure that it actually works on, because I think the Moo has a different addressing scheme.
No, not really.
No, it doesn't.
It
Patterned
does-
after the CoCo 3, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, it's 8K MMU blocks like the CoCo 3. I mean, you have
I
to
mean,
change it.
if your code is compatible with NitrOS9, it shouldn't matter so much what the underlying implementation is.
Right. Well, I think at least some of the builds I have use the optimization to eliminate it goes into absolute addressing.
Oh, okay.
Instead of using the Y relative or U relative.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have, because I seem to remember you had a thing where there was a hole in your memory.
Yeah, had to reserve some space for the graphics screen on the Dragon 32.
Yeah, because it has to stay in the main motherboard
Yeah,
RAM. It can't
yeah,
go into
yeah.
the Moo RAM.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that code intended for the Moo won't be able to use the level 2 optimizations.
Yeah, you're going a little bit out of the standard for OS9.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll probably figure out a way to make it work.
But yeah, I think all we have to do is disable the level 2 optimizations, because most other level 2 systems, each program gets memory starting at 0 and goes all the way up to the program.
Yeah, like a gimmick system or a smoke signal chieftain or something like that. They owned it the same.
Yeah.
They didn't have to have this reserved area for the video.
Yeah, so if there's a hole in memory, then we probably have to work around that and not use that optimization. But that's okay.
Yeah.
It's just a command line option.
Yeah. Or you just give up the screen for a second while you run this thing.
True.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay,
That could
I
work
think that
too.
cover everything I had. Any more questions from Mark here before we let these
Yeah,
guys go?
I have a couple more comments here I found. 60 made a comment about assembler stuff. TSC style local labels. I don't think that was probably aimed at William rather than Deke. And 60 also said, I think this was in response to whoever it was that got the OS9 and never went back to RS-DOS. He said, I might have been like that with the OS9 boot disk if the copy I had gotten hadn't been in Spanish. So obviously that was a stumbling block for him. Mr. Ladd says he likes to switch between MAME, VCC, and XROR. And Frederick said once control is done, pretty much done, he'd like to move on with something else, maybe a new version of the calendar app from what goes with Multiview.
I bet you'll use DCC for that too.
And I believe that's everything I found. And I apologize if I missed somebody's comments, but I've been looking through for stuff. So
I know Mark Siegel, formerly of Tandy, he says maybe we can get an AI to write it, but I can't remember what that was in reference to.
Oh, that comment about the screws, that was Brian Wiesler, not Mark Siegel.
Oh, okay.
And I do know that new calendar needs iCal support, so we can just kind of import our files right into Multiview there.
Yeah,
He can work with Lord Dragon on that.
Yeah, he's already got an iCal based thing going, just not a full calendar for Multiview. Anyway, I want to thank you guys for coming on. I know we've been trying to work on getting this to go for months, and Jeff in particular has a particularly hard schedule to get on the show live. We had to wait for a holiday. And of course, Tormod's in Europe, so the time zone change difference there. As you can tell, it's pitch black where he is. But I want to thank you all for coming on and sharing your experiences and all the projects you've worked on in the past, the projects that you're still working on, if that applies to you. And for recording this history of the development of NitrOS9, because this is a decade up until the last 5 years I know almost nothing about, because I was kind of out of it completely. I was kind of like burned out from doing it, as I've talked about with when we interviewed Boise. After doing it for 11 years straight, it was just like I don't even want to look at NitrOS9 code anymore for a while. So, and I've kind of got the bug again, so back into it full force. But there's a lot of this history I didn't know, so thanks for sharing. And you guys are welcome to stay around for the rest of the show if you want. We've got the Game On Challenge stuff. We've got the news coming up and a whole bunch of stuff, but that's a couple more hours, which you probably have better things to do. I'm sure William wants to get back to his game.
Frederick says that he will have iCal support.
Oh, cool.
And networking. Yay.
But you guys are welcome to stay. Or if you guys want to just hang out for a little bit, you can. I should mention that William and Jeff, if you guys have any questions about the LW tools, the LW assembler, DCC, any of the Unix tools that Jeff supported, they're both very active on our CoCo Discord. And I'll let somebody post the link to that in the chat. Now, Tormod, are you on the CoCo Discord?
No, I'm not.
Okay, we should invite you. It's free. We don't force sales of stuff onto you or anything like that. And it's a very active community. There's an active Dragon section too. Karen's a regular on it, amongst others. So, I like the shirt. But you should definitely join in too, because we can kind of keep up with you and maybe help you out testing some of the builds, etc. When you get to the point of releasing the next official release of NitrOS9.
Yeah. We also have a Physics section. We have an XROR section.
Yep. Actually, one of the main guys behind Physics on there too. What's his name?
Red
Got the big beard. That's all I remember.
Oh, big beard.
Alan.
Alan Cox. That's who that is.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so you can even talk to Physics stuff on there too if you wanted to. So, anyway, thanks, guys. I think we'll go to a commercial break here because I'm sure Ron has to go to the bathroom. And
yes, thank you, gentlemen, for your associated projects and what they mean to us.
Yeah,
Yes.
big thank you for me
Indeed,
too.
thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much. It's an awesome thing you guys have done over the long time.
Okay, here we go.
Oh, shit.
The CoCo Nation Show is an unscripted, live, and interactive broadcast. Anything can and will happen. The views and opinions expressed by members of the panel and the live audience are their own, and not necessarily those of the CoCo Nation Show, its sponsors, affiliates, or subsidiaries. Open minds are encouraged, and a sense of humor is recommended. Thank you for being a part of the CoCo Nation.
Hey Amy. Hey Taylor. We're watching the CoCo Nation Show. Yeah, we are. Woo! You should too.
The CoCo Nation Show would like to thank the following patrons: Alex Gayer, Brendan Donahue, Brian Walsh, Brian Weasler, Kieran Anscombe, Daddy Burrito, Diego BF109, Dinty's Hideaway, Don Barber, Eric Canales, Glenn Hewlett, Grant Leedy, John Boat of Carshaller, Henry Strickland, Justin Larson, Ken Reichard, Mike Rayburn, Patrick Euland, Paul Fiscarelli, Paul Shoemaker, R. Allen Murphy, Retro Tech Time, Rob Inman, Rocky Hill, Steve Batson, Terry Steege, Tom C., Tom Gunderson, Tom S., Tony C., and William Athing. Thank you so much, patrons.
Welcome to everybody's favorite segment, Who's New to Discord?
Cloward says, I guess I'm Steve today. Right now exploring BBSs with Synchronet, coding in QB64, and trying to learn some assembly are what I'm doing. While looking up the original computers, I discovered the Tandy channels and found my way here. Mostly I like to create stuff. I like seeing passionate communities. The Joyful Programmer says, my name is Walter W. While I currently do not have any of the retro systems, I started coding in 1982 on a Timex Sinclair ZX81, then moved on to the Apple IIe, Apple IIc, Commodore VIC-20, Commodore 64, TI-94A, and Color Computer 3, all which I had absolutely enjoyed coding on. What am I looking for? I'm not sure really. Maybe reignite the flames of the days of old. Possibly even get to chat with people who enjoyed those older machines like I did, or even more. Templar X says, name, Brian. Retro systems, computer-wise, only an Atari 800 XL currently set up. Had a C128 since childhood, and over the years have collected a few different retro computers that I periodically take out and play around with, including the CoCo 2. Heard about this Discord channel on Atari Age. Looking for games and terminal info on the CoCo, and potentially modern hardware add-ons for it, SD cards, improved video, etc. Feeblomatic says, your name, Dave. Your systems, I started in the 80s with a 4K CoCo 1, and worked my way up to a 64K CoCo 2, which I still have to this day. How do you retro? I enjoy learning about how the CoCo ROM works, doing some assembly coding, animating graphics, and playing the occasional game. Looking for? Just curious what folks are up to and what you're all talking about. Michael H says, hello, Michael H., Arkansas, long time of Tandy computers. Sean Rock says, I'm Sean, aka Geek with Social Skills on YouTube. I've been an Apple II user since the 1970s and a C64 user since 1983. Recently I got into the CoCo 2 thanks to Timbo Tech, who donated a CoCo 2 to me. I now have a CoCo 3 and ready to dig into the world of color computing. The previous bios were edited for time. Thanks to Boysen, Glenside Computer Club, Kev Hole, Nightbeard, Paul Fiscarelli, Paul Shoemaker, Tandy Color Computer 3, and the CoCo Nation patrons for boosting the server. Please consider joining Discord and visiting the welcome section to read these bios in full and see what the community has to offer. Just go to discord.thecoconation.com.
See you on Discord.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the CoCo Nation Game On Challenge of the Week results video. This week we played Shaft. And we had a total of 15 participants. We had Damon Beals and Ed Rhodes tied for 14th with 3190. Coconut Bob 3920. Sabhead 3980, Shenley 4260, L. Curtis Boyle 7050, Rich N 7500, Mr. Dave 6309 8310, Mark B 9050,
Better than
Sloopy
usual.
Malibu 9170, Canadian Retro Things 9900. 8 Bits in the Basement, 9910. Buck Owens, 10,680. Jim Rye, 12,100. And this week's number one score came from Tasman with 12,190. Thanks to everybody that participated this week, and we will see you again next week.
Which game was that?
That was for Shaft.
Neutroid.
That was the one we all
So
got.
no, we didn't post your zero score yet, Ron. That's next week.
Okay.
So we need to give Buck Owens a wellness
Like being on the
check.
top.
What was that, Rick?
So do we need to give Buck Owens a wellness check? He's been kind of fading.
He's been kind of busy on some of the Amigo stuff too, because they've got game on challenges for the Spectrum and the Amiga and some other stuff too. So I think he's been.
I was just gonna say he seems a little off his game here.
He just doesn't like us as much as he used to.
Yeah, he's also just as disappointed as Ken and I that Nick is working on this stupid Neutroid Part 3 instead of the game he should be working on. So
No, that's
I
what
think he
he's
feels the
waiting
same way.
for.
He's probably
Yeah, the other game, same as us.
He doesn't play all the other stuff. He's waiting on Neutroid.
He's tired of
All right.
shafted by all these games.
All right, I'm putting a fork in the Neutroid talk now. Let's talk about Shaft. All right, well, first off, let's start out with the Rainbow of December 1984, where I did find some high scores for this game. 12,220. And you'll notice that looks like the
Brother,
two
sister.
scores submitted were a brother and sister, or it could have been husband and wife.
Or mother, father.
Anyways,
daughter.
relatives, it looks like probably in the same home. Canadians, too. Anyways, 12,220, so that's very on par with what we were scoring.
So they're Canadian scores, so they're about 7,000 and 10,000.
I don't think there's a conversion in the Shaft scores, but I could be wrong.
Either way, you get shafted.
And now in Rainbow July of 84, this review did praise the game for being like no other game on the market. Basically said that there are no strategies to think out, no decisions to be made. The whole game is a question of timing and doesn't give any bonus men, which I'm not sure that I ever got high enough that I would have even noticed.
I want to
Did
go.
say that it was so hard that he didn't think children would find it at all possible to play it. And the random patterns often make it impossible to continue without getting killed, which is definitely something I also noticed. Then he got into what he really thought of the game and basically says that he would have expected better offerings. The graphics were not spectacular. The gameplay left something to be desired, but it is unlike any other game, so should be credited for being an original work. So I would say that That guy did not like the game terribly much.
Sounded like a close pin on the nose.
I can't say he's wrong on any of his points.
No.
I think he nailed it.
In the December 83 of Color Computer Magazine, this reviewer did say that there are places on the second and third levels they found impossible to get through, and figured it may have been a flaw in the program, a flaw in them, or a flaw in the joystick, but they would say it was the program. And the opening title graphics are nice. The rest of the graphics are glitchy and with a lot of screen flicker, which is annoying. And it happens every time that he moves that the screen freezes momentarily. Because it stops the elevators moving every time you move. So it's only moving one of the things at a time. But they did get to know which setups were useless and would kill themselves off right away because there's no way of getting by it. So unless you're going for high scores, that's a pretty sound way to do it. The instruction sheet is short and simple. I don't know. I don't think we ever found instructions for this game, did we?
No, I don't think so.
Although they did not include any thing about how the scoring is done, they were a little confused because there didn't seem to be a lot of reasoning behind the scoring. A lot of the things that you get points for are very not obvious. And according to the instruction sheet, the highest score that the people that made the game were able to get was 15,330. So basically, we all got more than two-thirds. A bunch of us got more than 2/3 as far as the actual creators of the game ever got. So this reviewer, however, did like the game and found it addicting. So
For me, it's that is true. I mean, the game is original. The game does have fun to it. It's just that it should have been set up in such a way that you don't get impossible levels at random, where you can start a game and you just can't do anything. Like you can't possibly get through it. That's
you
just
can
bad
usually get
design.
past the bottom level, but then the closer to the middle you get, the more impossible it gets. Just because of the spacing of the elevators. So
All they really had to do is just have it so that a couple of the elevators, maybe every second one or something, is a little bit different speed than the other ones, so that you would have at least had the ability to at least wait out. There's no timer. So that was just a design
but they all
flaw.
went exactly the same speed, so no matter how long you waited, it was just stayed as impossible as ever.
Yeah. That'd be the biggest flaw of the game. Now, there's some other things like the graphical, it was meant for 16K if I remember, so they probably didn't double buffer it, so they had flickering and stuff like that. I can handle that because if it's due to memory restrictions, I'm okay with that. But the design flaw of having the game literally impossible to get past a level, especially if you randomly got that as a first level too. I mean, that's just bad.
Well,
That's comments here from the chat room here too. Buck Owen says should have a reversing mechanism like Shark Treasure, where you hit the button and the elevators change direction and go the other way.
Oh yeah, that would help with the
I noticed
getting through it.
I noticed the stutter when you go to move, everything stops.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that was very helpful in getting past some of the ones that were not that far apart.
Yeah.
That seemed to be one of the key things, was leveraging that for your best advantage.
Yep, we can see
But
that.
it didn't always work.
I liked it when when the elevators were all just straight across.
Yeah, I actually got that 2 times in a row on the first level, and then right away again on the second level. That's how I got my high score.
I never got up the first level. I got up to the top row and died, so that was as far as I got.
I was
Go ahead,
happy
Sophie.
second level.
I've gone to the second level before when I played it years ago when I did the webpage, but I didn't this round at all. Got close. So any tips and tricks besides, purposely die until you get a decent set of elevators?
Not really. It is actually possible to, when you're like on the second level, to get across an elevator if you just hold the joystick left or right, to get over a elevator on the short side, but the timing has to be absolutely perfect. Like if the elevator,
as you guys saw on the live
bottom,
stream too, I forgot that you have to wait for the elevator to come down to you. I just figured it would just instantly jump, so I just like would plummet off to my death.
I did that a couple of times too.
You did a Wile E. Coyote.
But yeah, there's not a lot to say about this game. It was pretty simple, but original. So
yeah, original, a little bit flawed. That's how I would describe it.
Yeah,
it's definitely a game that could be fixed with a, you know, either the Shark Treasure style reverse the elevators with a button. Maybe you can only use it once or twice per level, or if the elevators were specifically set so that they can't all be the exact same timing.
or,
then
yeah, so that they're not all going the same speed. That would.
That would pretty well at least allow you to wait until you get a place where you have an opening enough to get out.
Yeah. Like even if the outside and the middle ones went one speed and then the 2 second and fourth place ones went a different speed.
Yeah.
It would make a huge difference.
Yeah. I think we could make the game a lot more fun actually. So
yeah. Then there would actually be strategy to it, not just dumb luck and
yeah. What was the random number generating do this time? Oh, I'm screwed.
All right. Well, does anybody else have anything to say about Shaft? Nope.
We were shafted.
It's
Yes,
better
we
than
were.
Neutroid. Oh, sorry. I said we weren't going to do that anymore.
So the other game that we were playing this week was Willy's Warehouse.
That's an old favorite of mine. I love that game.
Yeah. That's,
I like it better than Candy Co myself.
That's a good game. And definitely, if you're going for points, as Sloopy pointed out during the live stream, definitely try to push a box in on the guy that's behind the girders and kill him because he's worth a lot of points.
Yeah, and that one you can earn free men as you go. I think it's every
Yeah.
40,000 or something like that.
Not sure. Somebody didn't do any dramatic readings on Thursday. Mark.
They did a dramatic snooze though.
Dramatic snoring, perhaps. Or- I'm surprised I didn't hear dramatic snoring during our NitrOS9 special.
I had my microphone off.
I had my microphone muted.
Yeah, some
What
of the
I
people in the
was
panel
trying
here
to
just aren't into the technical deep dives. I don't know what's wrong with them, but
What hours 9 session? Did I miss something?
So I don't know. Anything else to say about that game? Other than yeah, it's actually
Like it.
quite a bit of fun.
did we find a manual for that one? Because the one thing I'm curious on that one, and I never had the manual when I had the power version of it.
Don't think we found a manual, but there are some reviews of it that basically do the whole explanation of everything, just regurgitating what the manual says. So
Because my one question is the number boxes that you pick up on the left side are different colors. Some are red, some are blue. Does that have any significance, or is it just to be a bit of variety?
I have no idea. Didn't read anything about that. So anybody out there that has a Willy's Warehouse manual, the archive needs it.
Yes.
I think everyone had a
I
off
need something to read next week.
As far as I could tell, the color was just based on what number it was. Like the 4s were always red. I think the 3s were always blue.
Oh, were they?
Yeah, 1
I
and
thought they were different. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah,
I didn't pay attention.
yeah, 1 and 2 are one color, and 3 and 4 are another color.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
Oh, there you go.
But yeah, it would have been interesting to have, like, when you had the 1, 2, and 3 coming up the right side, having an order that would like say like a blue box, no matter what the color was, no matter what the number was, or a red box or something like
So
that.
you just want it to be easier.
No, I'm saying that as a higher level thing to make it more
Yeah,
difficult.
we have to match the color and the number or something like that.
Oh,
too,
number
right?
and okay, so
You get extra
basically it
points
would be a
for
choice of
matching
8
both.
different things.
Yeah. Yeah, I did like that game.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Well, you get to play
Intracolor
for
was
one more
quite
week.
good. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Ken.
I was just saying, well, you get to play for one more week, and then you can continue playing it afterwards. Just because the game on challenge ends doesn't mean you have to stop playing the game.
Oh, really? Wow.
I will allow it.
The
That
High
is
Council
kind of you.
has spoken.
But we don't get paid anymore, right?
Wait a second.
Well, you don't get paid any less.
No, I'll just say Intercolor had really good games. I mean, their clones like Robotac and Color Peter were really good. They were some of the best ones, especially for 82 when they came out. And then the original games like Willie's Warehouse, Candy Co. are really excellent games too. The only backfire they really had was Grand Prix, which, you know, looked okay from screenshots, but the corners in that game were just not done right. But other than that, it was a pretty good game too. So Dave Clark, head of Intercolor.
Okay. Shall we talk about the live stream on Thursdays, Loopy?
I guess I can do that.
Okay, well, I'll throw up some video from that.
Yay. We had a successful show where we had 6 people playing at one time. We need to get more. So where were you? Not on the show. What unimportant thing did you have that you were not there? But yes, it was a fun time had by all. As I said, we had up to 6, which is our average. We're trying to get a steady 9 so that we can have a full screen. And we've been trying to get better and better games, but unfortunately we keep getting shafted.
It's coming.
Yeah, I know. We're waiting. I'm waiting.
Yeah.
Impatient.
Whenever Nick starts his second game, yeah. So I'm looking forward to it.
When is Scripsit coming up anyway?
Dan,
Right after Spectaculator.
That keeps getting put on the list, but it keeps getting pushed down for some reason.
Yeah. And I personally want to thank Ken for making sure it always gets skipped over. So
Save the best for last.
So when is Ken going on vacation so that we can get someone else to choose a game?
2 weeks.
Oh, sweet. So in 2 weeks, we're going to have Spectaculator. Spectaculator. However you spell it. Or maybe I'll do Scripsit too.
I'm just curious how we're going to rank those so you know who came in first and who came in last.
Well, in Color Scripsit, you go by word count.
yeah, timed word count. It'd be like typing tutor.
Yeah. Fred said microbes. I think we already played microbes, didn't we?
I don't think so.
I don't remember.
We should redo some games.
No, we've still got another.
We still have like 700 games to go.
No, we've got 1,400 games to go. I've only got half on my website, so.
Yeah, we have 700 to go that are on Curtis's website. Then we've got another 1,000.
700 I'm still haven't got to yet.
Yeah.
We have 2
What
games
about
a
that
week.
one we were talking about yesterday, Curtis? The ROTG, what's it called?
Return of the Beast.
Yeah.
Stuart Orchards.
Didn't we do? We did that one already, didn't we?
Did we?
I couldn't remember. We did his Rotab, the
Rotab, yeah, we did.
Revenge of
Okay.
the Alien Bongo Beast something or other. I can't remember the full title.
Yeah, we did
That one. That one was titled the same way that Todd Wallace apparently makes labels in the source code.
Hey,
90 characters long.
Made a pretty.
Here's a concept. One popular game and one you've never heard of this before game.
Well, unfortunately, we've already played most of the popular games.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But you have 2 games a week, or maybe even 3 games a week.
Oh,
Popular
Oh,
game
don't get
and
don't get
strange
too
games.
complicated. I have enough trouble keeping track of 2 games.
4 times E to the 7th. Yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of games to go, and people like Nick and Paul Shoemaker and others keep bringing out new ones too. So I don't think we're going to run out anytime soon.
The more popular games we once in a while for special occasions do bring them up again, but
cool.
Yeah, I think we've got enough of a deep amount of games to go through yet that won't happen. That won't be necessary, I should say, for a while, but yeah, we do occasionally do the special ones.
Yeah, I do have a game already selected for 2 weeks from now.
Okay.
And yeah, I actually saw it on someone's stream on Twitch.
Gates of Delirium?
It's not a as a hint, it's not a new concept, but it's a little different take on an old concept.
Oh, Neutroid.
Neutroid 4? 3, 2, 1? Which one?
Nick, I told you not to tell anyone.
All right. Well,
You still can't get it right here, so we'll have to just wait.
So, all right, back to you.
What
Ken.
about an OS9 game? We haven't had an OS9 game.
Yeah,
No, I don't think we have.
I tried to pick one, but I was told no because it'd be difficult to explain to everyone how to get OS9 running.
Well, if you get a pre-done one from the archive, it's just like
Yeah.
put
Yeah,
the
there's
image
some
inside
OS9
DOS.
ones
It's
on
not
there.
that hard.
You just you download the EOU and the games are there.
Yeah,
just
then I was
double click.
Then I was told about this EOU thing, and I tried it, and it was like I was confused. It was not very.
Yeah, well, you're an Atari guy, so that kind of explains.
yeah,
that.
that explains a lot.
Sorry,
He's having a slamming mood today. I slammed Apple on Mark. I slammed Atari on Sleepy. I'm sorry, guys. Must be not enough coffee.
All right. Well, shall we look at
Don't
the
get mad.
upcoming
Eat easy.
games?
Yes, please.
Coronis Rift.
So, of course, we are playing Willy's Warehouse for one more week. So, you get another week to try and get a amazingly awesome score on that. Now, this is a bit of an interesting one, which I discovered this morning after having chose this and got everything ready. So,
Qubit. Of
Which
Soul.
one is this, though? This is the...
Yeah. Was there a Cubix or?
yeah, I think this is Cubix, isn't this?
nope.
The Spectral one? No?
Nope.
Q-Man? No, it's not Q-Man. Oh, this is Tom Mix's, maybe.
You're a mix.
Qbit, or I what the heck is theirs called? There's
It
like 8 different
is-
Qberts on the CoCo, so I can't remember.
This one, Newbert.
Ah, right, Mike Rowe.
But this is not available on the archive. It's only available on Curtis's website.
Now I
Oh,
have.
really?
And Curtis also has it mislabeled on his website.
Well, no, actually, because Newbert is not. I actually talked to Mike Rowe about this. Somebody hacked the intro screen.
No, but you have it listed on your website, but you don't have it listed that you have the download for it.
Oh, let me write that down.
Cool.
But so you have to get this off of L. Curtis Boyle's website. I'll
Do
put
I
the
at least
link-
have it as a disk image, or is it a binary?
It's a disk image.
Oh, good.
Now I have to pick a new game in 2 weeks. Thanks, Ken.
Was that the game?
No, I'm just messing with you.
Anyway, so it's a Qbert clone. And this one you actually unlike a lot of the games, you don't have to try and figure out which is left, right, center, up and down, whatever, how to go. It's use the diagonals on your joystick to move. Just like you move on the screen.
Cool. Have we done any Qberts before? Like I said, the
Yes,
CoCo's got a ton of them.
we have done one of them for
Pyramix?
sure, or maybe two.
Yeah,
Like
we did one.
Pyramix?
Oh,
I
there's
would have to look
Q-Man,
it up.
there's Qbix, or there's Pyramix, there's
Yeah.
I think we did Pyramix.
Blockhead from Computerware. There's a ton of them.
Anyways, this is one I had chosen, and then I didn't realize it actually wasn't on the archive yet, or wasn't ever on the archive. So get it from L. Curtis Boyle's site.
I'll have to upload it to the archive too. I thought I caught the archive up, but apparently I missed one.
I'm driving, but I'm just trying to drive people towards your website, Curtis.
No, I don't care. I don't get views on my YouTube page, and I don't even know what the views on my webpage. My counter actually, it's still active there, but it broke for about 2 years, and then all of a sudden it started working again, and I didn't change anything, so I don't know what the hell's going on, but it's not even accurate anyway. Mike Owens, by the way, says, yuck, that's going to make emulation with keyboards suck.
Yep.
The diagonals.
Oh, that's true. I never thought of that.
I just say
people that use
hoo-hoo.
keyboards.
Boo-hoo.
Anyways, it's for the color computer 1, 2, or 3, 32K RAM, taper disc, and joystick is required.
And what's the name of the game?
Newbert.
Yeah.
I will post the link to Curtis's page in.
Yeah, I'll upload it to the archive, but I know Guillaume is actually busy this weekend, or at least today for sure, for the whole day. So I'm not sure when he'll be able to get to it. But it'll be in the archive soon as well.
And even though Curtis's webpage says that he doesn't have the download for this, it's not on his list of ones he has a download for. He has it.
If I didn't have to do all the news stuff right after, I'd go fix it right now while you're talking, but I don't have
It's
time.
down at the bottom, but there's the link to zip file.
Yeah. I just love to rag on Curtis about mistakes he makes on his website because it's fun.
Yeah, and there's lots of them, so he'll be doing this for the end of time.
All right, well, that's all I have to say about the Game On Challenge. So I guess it is time for some news. Newsy.
It's going to be wake up newsy now after our other long one.
The Hair on Fire video. Here we go. This is what I've been waiting for all morning.
Alrighty.
Hi, I'm Terry Steggy from Retro Tech Time and the Tandy Shack, and you're watching the CoCo Nation, the world's first live and interactive talk show featuring the Tandy color computer and its hardware cousins.
From the makers of the Switcheroo. Wallaby Cable, Color Computer 3 Dual RGB Cable. Get yours today at cocoman.biz.
A whole new approach. Faster than ever. A window to a world of possibilities. Clear your expectations. Clear your hesitation. Just hit clear.
Download EOU today at lcurtisboyle.com.
Hey there, I'm Ken from Canadian Retro Things. And I'm Amy from Taylor and Amy Show. Yeah, that was Amy from Taylor and Amy Show. And you're watching the CoCo Nation Show.
When you want the latest in TRS-80, Tandy, Dragon, MC-10, and all of their hardware cousins. No matter what it takes, or where news breaks, from around the world to your nation. The CoCo Nation News with L. Curtis Boyle.
They call me the Human Torch. Hey, Game On News first. So the next episode of the CoCo Show from Amigos Retro Gaming with John and Aaron is out, covering Wizard's Den, which Ken of Canadian Retro Things actually timed perfectly to have as one of our challenges. You guys actually should be quite familiar with this game. It's got their normal sense of humor. Aaron actually got fairly far in it. He is planning on doing a live stream of it at some point because he actually got, I think, to the 3rd level or 4th. I can't remember. We also got in contact with the original author, Matt Harper. We're trying to arrange an interview, but he's actually talking about possibly getting an emulator download and see if he can actually make it through all 8 levels to show the entire gameplay for the entire game, which would be kind of cool too. So we'll keep you posted once we get iron details out of when we're going to have him on. And I'm going to try to get John and Aaron, or at least one of them, to come on and help co-interview since they covered the game as well. And Matt has seen the live Game On challenge that we did with Wizard's Den, and he also saw the episode of the CoCo Show, so he's actually seen them both. So get Mart to have some feedback on us on what he thought of our covering of the game. Next up, Paul Shoemaker. Now, he's done 3 video updates this week on his porting his video poker game to the MC10, which is the first assembly language game he's ever done on the 6803, which is the CPU inside the MC10. So I'm just going to show the latest one here because he's been adding stuff as it goes on. And this here has actually got the title screen for the first time, and he's got some sound effects in it, etc. So let's just play that.
Interesting. Your next video is a Brazilian wax.
Yeah, don't ask me. I'm not interested in one, I can say that.
YouTube matching algorithms.
A Brazilian, that's a lot of them.
And the game looks really good. So, and it's got some sound effects. The title screen stuff's been added. And this has all been the span of a week. So, at the rate he's going, he might even have it done in a week or 2. So looking forward to that. More new assembly language games for the MC10 coming. Next up here, we have this is Geo Pappas, I think. Pippo's 34. So this is an Italian retro gaming. So this is actually an Italian. And he's playing Astle Blast. Now, I'm not sure what happened. Like, obviously, this here is a higher semi-graphics mode for the intro screen. So on a CoCo 3, it'll cut it off like this.
Yeah.
The actual game itself is P mode 4, but if you watch it, I'll just play a little tiny bit of it. But if you actually watch the gameplay, this is one where he's got the top, bottom, left, and right all cut off from where they should be. So I'm not sure if he just cropped his recording software wrong but you're missing like your score and your shields, and you can see the bottom of the ship's cut off. I'm not quite sure why that happened, but now this one, Ken, have we covered this one on the Game On Challenge? Do you know?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if we did or not, because I remember this was the first game I ever saw artifact colors on the CoCo.
I know we played a lot of these style games. I'm just not sure if we've played that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just take a look. I'll let you know in about 30 seconds.
Okay. Because like this one is. Go ahead, Nick.
This was one of the games I actually did play back in the day. So.
Yeah, it came out in like mid to late '82, so it was a fairly early one. But I remember because I'd seen all these ones from Radio Shack, like Quasar Commander, which is like played in yellow and red and blue and green and stuff here. This was the first one with real artifact colors that reminded me of an Apple II game, but with much better sound. So it was one that somebody actually came in and just loaded it up at one of the Radio Shack stores and then left it running. So I didn't even know where the hell it came from. I didn't know third party existed at that point. This was my first introduction to third party. And then a couple months later, I saw Donkey King for the first time. So this is the first game that actually went, the CoCo's pretty good at playing games. I'm sure Nick didn't have the exact same experience here because he didn't see the color. But even in black and white, this actually doesn't look too bad.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I only saw it in black and white, but it was one I did actually play. I did like it.
Yeah. And it's based on Astro Fighter, not on Astro Blast.
Astro Fighter,
yeah.
That particular game we have not played.
Ooh.
There you go.
Put it ahead of script set, please.
He gives us Shaft instead. God.
Now, this one is by some Australian guy.
Oh, yeah, this one is a good one, yeah.
I've definitely rejected this one a few times.
Yeah. So this is by Geo Pappas, and actually he seems to be going through Nick's game catalog because I won't cover them on the show here because we're a CoCo show, but he's been covering some of your level Model 1 and 3 games too.
Yeah.
A couple he's released. So Cosmic Ambush, of course, is loosely based on Xevious, I guess is probably the closest match with scrolling terrain, etc. but you didn't have bombing, but you added, weapon power up. So it's kind of a bit of originality in there too. And this is one, for those who don't know, that you originally intended to be on a cartridge from Radio
It was
Shack.
going to be, but I never finished it.
Yeah. Well, that and the fact that they canceled the CoCo at the last minute when you were still working on it.
Hmm.
So for those of you who've not seen it, I'll just go ahead to a screenshot here. Now, the emulator that he's playing it on is actually not drawing it correctly. You'll see shapes, like the enemy shapes will just disappear and reappear, and that's not what happens on the actual game. They flicker, but they don't just disappear for half a second or something like that. So that's the problem with the emulator.
Yeah, and it's probably just also the way I did the sprites. The sprites do flicker, but on a normal CRT, you don't really notice the flicker. But on an emulator, it really stands out.
Yeah. Well, for me personally, I did notice the flicker even on real hardware, but it's like a strobe light flicker. Like you still see where everything is. On the emulator, whichever one this was, and I remember seeing this back in the day, it actually literally disappears, like all the aliens disappear and then they reappear like half a second later, and hopefully they didn't run into you.
Well, back in the day, we didn't have those sort of emulators, and you never saw this. And then,
And of course, you've got, famous two shapes hidden in the background. If you pay attention to the scrolling background, you've got the word OS9 and you've got a Space Invader.
Yeah,
So
that's one bug I couldn't get out of the game.
The Space Invader.
No, the OS9.
Anyway, it's a good, fun game. It's a little bit difficult. Every time you get hit, you lose your power up to the previous level. I think there's
wimp
4. Yeah, we'll wait till Ken brings it up, and we'll have Nick live stream. We'll see how wimpy he is then.
Yeah, he'll just get to use the cheats though.
2 could play that game. I've got a MAME debugger. Next up, we've got Cuthbert GA's YouTube channel. I'm not going to read the whole thing, what its title is. Doing more Dragon 32 long play game videos along with the original cassette and the original cassette artwork. He actually had quite a few here, including the Beanstalker, which is actually one of the Dragon ones we covered, Eddie Steady Go. Crazy Painter, which is actually originally a
TSA Model 1.
Oh, yeah, actually, originally it was back when there was still Computer Shack, I think. Or is that, no, this was Cornsoft, wasn't it? This was Cornsoft Group, the same guys who did Frogger.
What's the Crazy Painter look like? I can't remember now.
It's not bad. It's Artifact Colors. It even has background music, one of the few games back then.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, real CRT stuff. And of course, Downland on cassette, which we never saw in North America. That was a cartridge from Radio Shack, but in the UK it was sold on cassette.
What's Flag?
Hunt the Flag. It's a strategy game written in BASIC. No,
strategy. Yeah, I don't want that.
Yeah, not as bad as NitrOS, but still. Anyway, there's a fair number that he put on here too, so you can check those out if you haven't seen those. And like I said, he's doing the longer play videos, so you actually get to see more than just a quick minute. You get to see a fair bit of gameplay. Tanglewood was an adventure, if I remember correctly. Next up, Richard Kelly put up Xenocide version 1.1. Now, you may recall when Allison Deneau was on the show in 2020, she announced that she'd released this game. And it's basically a planet that's orbiting around you. You have to shoot missiles off that actually, properly calculate how gravity would work going around a circular object like the planet. So you have to kind of figure out how far ahead you have to shoot to try to destroy cities, etc. So it's kind of miscommand in a round centered planet type thing. Now, Richard Kelly had mentioned, I think we mentioned last week, or maybe it was just on Facebook last week, but he mentioned that he wanted some better instructions built in and just some minor tweaks to the gameplay, so that he got permission from Allison to do them, and has kept her name on the credits for it. But you can go download the version 1.1 in the CoCo Facebook group. I think there might be a screen. Yeah, here's a screenshot of the actual gameplay here. Didn't zoom up, but basically you're this orbiting satellite here. I'm assuming you guys can see the mouse cursor I'm showing.
Yeah.
And then these little things raised from the planet's surface are the cities you're trying to bomb. So basically you're rotating around, you have no control of the speed, but you have to hit the button and it'll shoot an arcing thing using Newtonian laws, etc., to calculate exactly what angle it's going to fall at and see if you blow them up. It's actually kind of a fun game. But it's got a bit more built-in help now and some little minor tweaks. So free download on Facebook, and go grab that. I'm assuming it'll be in the archive soon too. Yeah, and this looks like this other tab crashed. Firefox has really been giving me trouble with YouTube lately, so let's try that again. Maybe. Hey, Jim Mullis, he posted a video update to the arcade style game he's working on that is based on the DC Comics Superpowers toy line, which also was a mini series from DC back in the early 80s, if I remember. And basically, this is one we've showed a couple bits of it before. This is where he's using Graph Express by Jeff Steidel and Sundog Systems, which is a graphics and sound music library, which include windowing and clipping and sprites, etc., that actually you can run from BASIC. So it gives you some, almost ML speed on some basic stuff. So I'll just play the whole thing here because it's actually, I know not quite the whole thing because it gets a little bit corrupted later on, as he mentions in the comments, but you can kind of see the gameplay's going. He's actually got real shapes. So last time we showed this, you had these little circles kind of wandering around to represent sprites. And this actually has the scrolling background, but with actual Superman sprite on it. So I'll just play at the beginning when we first get to see the character running around and stuff and the background scrolling, and then we'll end it there before playing the whole thing. So it has a little splash screen here for Graph Express. And the sound is not normally that glitchy. That was the emulator.
Like a Game Boy.
So there's a little bit of the not much of the scrolling, but the regular HPrint command in BASIC does not let you scroll the screen like this. So that's part of Graph Express. One of the very simple things. That actually includes windowing and all kinds of layered windows and stuff too. There's a little mouse space selection box that you can do. We've got a loading a status bar. Something Nick's fond of using his games and a bit more recent. You didn't used to see these back in the 80s.
Now it's an elevator ride to the next level.
Now the circles are kind of representing some other sprites, and you'll see some little glitching above. I believe that's because it's actually defined as a fairly large. It's just that it happens to be see-through for the most part. Now I did ask him in the comments. I said maybe you should add in a top banner like Warrior King and some earlier CoCo 3 games did to get the speed up, so you're not scrolling all the screen because it's a fairly good sized chunk of memory you're moving around here. And he said there was the option of doing a much faster scroll, but then it doesn't do the sprites as clean. But he's kind of still fiddling with things to see which way he wants to end up doing it. But so like this, the sprite actually goes over top the background properly. So this is all stuff you can do within Graph Express. And I'm looking forward to see where he goes with this, and then what kind of power that you can do with Graph Express. Because other than the demos that came with Graph Express itself, and there's some pretty impressive ones on there. Most people that have tried using it that I know of usually give up on using Graph Express because it takes a fair bit of memory away from your basic program. But you can run a program that loads a bunch of stuff in one and then do a run quote, another second program for the actual game itself. So if you do your setup in one program and then run the next program to actually run the game itself, you can get some of that memory back essentially. So it does have some options for getting around it. And he's probably the one I've seen take it the furthest as far as this goes. Because I think Paul Thayer, when he tried it, he kind of gave up fairly quickly after he discovered how little RAM he had left, but I don't think he tried the chaining part. Okay, so that's the game related news. Now the regular news actually was a lot busier than I was thinking it was going to be. So let me switch. Yeah, you guys are seeing that? The Cocoa Pie project?
Yep.
Okay, so the Cocoa Pie project actually had multiple updates listed, 3 of them on the site that Ron Klein runs. The first one here is the new version of XWR 1.3.3319 work in progress package available for the Cocoa Pie. So this is like bleeding edge. You may hit some bugs here, but if you want to try out some of the new stuff that Karen's adding to XWR, and as we mentioned during the NitrOS9 part 3, for the people that use XWR, it's constantly in the state of development, so it's always getting added to. CoCo 3 support was added this past year, etc. So for those on the audio only and can't actually see the screenshot we're looking at here, I'll just mention some of the things that Karen has mentioned are being part of this next work in progress. He's got NTSC color tweaks for slightly better cyan, initial support for middle button paste. So if you have a 3-button mouse, you can actually paste text right into the basic, etc. Adding brightness, contrast, saturation, and hue controls for both GTK Plus and Windows. New options for setting the brightness, contrast, and color from the command line. New tape control and drive control windows in the Windows UI. The Gimme implements a bug in 16 color, 16 byte per row mode. I don't know which bug that's talking about. Nick, do you know what about a bug in the? I mean, most people don't use the 16 byte per row mode because that's only 32 pixels. But
yeah, no, I don't know about that one.
Okay. So Karen, if you're still in the chat, I can't see probably what he's saying there, but Mark, if you catch it, if he has an explanation of what that bug is, let me know.
Not so far, but I've been chatting with him here, so stay tuned.
Yeah. New option, Pixel FMT specifies pixel layout and bit depth. NTSC only composite renderer has been renamed, so you can still use the old one if you want to. New composite renderer that handles PAL used for CCR simulated. I think that might actually do some of the color artifacting. Yeah, the color mixing that you used on Donut Dilemma's original version.
Right.
WD279X write sync bytes before DAM fixes written to DMKs. That was actually by Michael Furman, which will be covering some stuff with him later too. So that's for doing special formats of floppies, etc. And the new option for color killer. And he mentions here, Kieran specifically mentioned performance on a Raspberry Pi 3 would certainly be impacted if trying to use the CCR simulated. You should use CCR partial, CCR 5-bit. So that's part of the rendering for the composite. So you will need a higher end Raspberry Pi to run that because it's pretty CPU intensive. So that was the first update. Sorry?
60 has an answer for you.
Okay.
He says, yeah, it loses the second byte of data in that mode for some reason. He further says that the Gimme tends to fetch 16 bits at once, so there's probably something wrong with the shifter in that particular mode. Shifting the
okay.
Space.
Not one I have encountered.
No.
Next update for the Cocoa Pie, the latest UG Basic. Now we have an active UG Basic channel on our Discord, and if you're not there, you should join. And he says here, Marcos Bedaletti has been working hard on UG Basic in just about daily updates, and I can vouch for that watching the channel. I figured it was time to update the Cocoa Pie with the most recent version from Git, and he gives some links to the actual main thing if you want to take a look at it. But basically, it's a sort of a modern version of Basic that compiles down to the Cocoa and other platforms too, so it gives you a fair bit of power, basically being compiled right to
Very
assembly.
nice cross-platformer. It targets Z80 systems and 6502 systems as well as the CoCo and Dragon. So it's
have you fiddled with it much, Mark, or just watching it from afar?
Oh yeah, I actually got it to build. The binaries he had for Linux are for the next version of Ubuntu, and they wouldn't work on mine, so I actually had to download the source code and build it myself, which I then ran into a couple other things. It was kind of fun. But anyway, yeah, I actually got it to build and played with it a little bit. It's got a few problems, some of the I/O stuff, but they're working on it. So anyway,
okay, cool.
No, it's cool. It cranks out a binary that you can stick on a disk and fire it up, and it works. So it's really excellent.
And how fast does it run from your experience?
It basically cranks out assembler. I mean, it's using 6809 assem, I think, for the back end. So it converts to some sort of metacode, which then gets cranked into assembler. So it's really quick. So, and the basics kind of a little more high level, like what's the current basic? MS Basic, but it looks a lot more like the Microsoft Basic. So,
okay,
you have higher level structures, loops, and stuff like that. You can skip line numbers and things. So,
oh, it sounds like Basic 09.
Yeah, except that it targets RS-DOS.
Yeah. And then the third update. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Nothing, just for people who don't want the OS9 in the way. So,
in the way? What are you talking about?
Oh, I'm interested.
That's who I was aiming to comment at.
I thought so.
Yeah, the only one. The other part, and the third part that he's got updated here is you can get the new CMOC 0.1.82 package. So that's an update to the CMOC, which is a C-like compiler that is also constantly getting updated. We mentioned that during the NitrOS9 part to there as well, because CMOC is capable of generating both this basic and OS9 modules. And in fact, the ease of use actually includes a card game that was written in CMOC, an older version. So it's by Pierre Sarrazin, and what's new in 1.82, and these are fairly technical ones, but I'll just read through them quickly for the hardcore geeks among us. So it added a new header which provides C functions set jump and long jump, added optimization option dash fomit dash frame dash pointer to tell the compiler to not keep the frame pointer in a register for functions that do not need one. This can shorten the program. This option is not on by default. It does not act on functions that use inline assembly. It should be used with caution because it has not seen much use as of its release. So you're getting kind of a beta here, and please give them some feedback if you find any issues. Added warning option dash W4 dash conditions dash sizes, which warns if a for loops condition compares values of different sizes. For example, an unsigned n equals 2 to 6. For unsigned char, I equals 0, I less than n plus plus I. CMOC is now compiled without debugging information by default. To compile CMOC with it, pass dash enable dash debug into configure script. So up until now, it had been basically compiling the debug option on, so it's adding extra code instead of for debugging.
That was the one I complained about because the executable was huge, like many megabytes instead of a couple megabytes.
Well, right, but that is that mark of passage when you finally let go of the debug and make that optional. I mean,
you're supposed to debug programs? What? When did this start? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, no, you're pretty sure your code. When you turn off debug, you're pretty sure your code. That's kind of a rite of passage. Yeah, it's
what
0 point something, but it's pretty trustworthy now. You don't really need all of this to live.
I don't understand. What's this thing? Bugs. I've never seen that.
Oh, that's right. You don't have those. I'm sorry. Yeah, here in the other side.
Here in the real world.
We have in the real world that just kind of break things for no reason.
Why we have David Ladd?
Yeah. Next up, CoCo Town. I'm going to try to get him on the show here soon too, since he's just kind of popped up in the YouTube CoCo community and cranked out some pretty interesting stuff. So he's got 2 new videos this week. The first one, he's showing how he made a sample library from his CoCo 2 controlled by MIDI. So basically what he's taking sound samples from a variety of CoCo sources. They could be games, they could be the play and the sound commands or whatever. And then he assigns them as MIDI patches. And then he actually has a second video where he actually sample song of this. But basically you can then create music based on CoCo actual sounds. And his actual theme song for his channel and stuff is actually based on that. So I'll play a little bit of the intro here, and then I'll play the sample sound that he actually did a little bit later too as well.
Hello and welcome. Today we're going to walk through the steps I took to generate CoCo Retro, a sample library from sounds generated by my CoCo 2. Sample libraries are virtual instruments you play on your PC or Mac. You can play them live with a MIDI keyboard or with pre-recorded MIDI data. And you can layer different instruments together.
So I'll just skip ahead a bit here. So that here is part of his theme music, and every single sound that thing's generating was originally done on the CoCo 2. Now, of course, when he's mixing them as MIDI patches, you can have like 16 notes at once or even more. So you can do some stuff a lot more complicated than a CoCo 2 could actually generate live. But each of the individual sounds actually comes from various games or, built-in basic commands. So he actually explains how he did this, and then he actually explains how he made his intro video. So he's actually showing some of the video editing that he did to get stuff to come together the way he wanted for his intro. And then he decided to make a little experimental thing of just doing a little sample using the CoCo library. And of course, on a decent editor, you can add effects and stuff too on top of it. I'll just fast forward a little bit here so it's a bit more complicated. It's kind of neat being able to create, a modern, multi-voice song, but based on samples from the CoCo itself. I could see a lot of really interesting stuff being done that way. And his theme song at the beginning of every one of his videos is actually a good example of that. But like I said, we're going to try to get him on the show here. There's about 6 or 7 people we're trying to get on for interviews. Just got to figure out what order they're going to be done. And plus, now that we've got summer holidays coming up, and got to try to figure out, some timing here so that I think I'm going to try to alternate every second week to have an interview, so we have a longer show and then a shorter show type thing rather than try to cram it all. Tuesday Retro Programming, another guy we're going to be trying to get on for an interview here. We've been covering his exploring BASIC and writing a couple games that he's working on in BASIC. This is another one of his takes a break from programming things for the actual games he's been working on. And this one's a little bit different. So he does a little bit, the tail end of the videos on calculating percentages using basic commands. So that's a bit more along the basic programming, just not game related. The first part, he's actually going through the origins of the terms poke and peek. And I won't spoil it. You can watch it there, but it's not what I thought it was. And it's related to English, quite a ways back as to what those terms actually meant. And then we're bored by the computer industry and BASIC in particular for, poking a value into memory and peeking a value from memory. So I won't play any of that because I don't want to spoil it, but definitely go check it out. It's kind of interesting, a little bit of history I didn't know.
You already have.
What's that?
I said you already have. Still had the answer in it.
Next up, Alan Huffman, and this time his blogging software on the web actually worked, because last week it wouldn't load at all. So this is a new one anyway that he added, and it's called Data Problems Revisited. And this goes from some little quirks of the read data statements in BASIC. And this is for Radio Shack BASIC, obviously. And in particular, it's an issue that crops up if you try to add statements after the data statement on the same line number. And it does bizarre things. So for example, if you look here, he's got a little program. He's got 10, read A, print A, if A equals -1 and else go to 10. So he's got a little data of some numbers with a -1 to signify the end of the list. But if you look at his line 100, he's got data 1, 2, 3, everything pretty well normal. But then he does : print foo, the word foo, not a variable. And then 110 is data -1 to signify the end of the table. But if you run it, it actually will give you, it'll read the first 3 character or the first 3 digits from the data statements here, 1, 2, 3. But when it hits the print foo, it actually returns a syntax error in 100. And that's because the BASIC interpreter, and I probably should have saved this for William when he was on, because he's a wizard at knowing how BASIC works internally. But basically, it takes anything that's past the data statements and doesn't properly process the tokens. So the print foo, it still thinks should be part of a data statement, though the colon tells it should be, start of a new command. So it doesn't work properly. And he gives some other examples of, where you can get some weird stuff in there too, and kind of explains, how to avoid it basically. Most people didn't notice this because normally you would have data statement by itself on the line, and then you might have, subsequent lines with more data if you had a ton of data you had to worry about. But most people didn't try to mix a data statement followed by another command, but there's a reason for that because it doesn't work properly. So that was a pretty good deep dive, and it might help some people debugging programs if they are trying to mix a data statement with some other commands on the same line in BASIC.
I would bet other versions of Microsoft BASIC, like on the Commodore and Apple II, would probably have the same issue.
I would guess so, because they will have their standard interpreters. So
yeah, the data parser just assumes it's all data, it's nothing else. So
yeah. Next up, Jason's not actually on the show today, but he was finally released the video. He said better late than never from VCF Midwest 17, which was before CoCo Fest by a month or something? Does anybody remember? So he covers some of the CoCo stuff there. There's Taylor Namier in there and David Ladd and Ken and others. I won't play it here because we kind of covered the VCF stuff, back when VCF actually happened. But he was a little bit late on getting this video up. But if you want another perspective on VCF Midwest and a lot of CoCo content within it, definitely go check out his video on his Fairly Amused channel on YouTube.
I think this is last September, so it was after last CoCo Fest, but before this last one.
Yeah, it was in September.
Oh, okay.
And coming up in September again.
This one here is a short, and this is from Vern's Misadventures. We've covered his channel before. And this is a YouTube short of an extended basic demo. And I think this was actually one that some Radio Shacks actually ran, if I remember. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to remember seeing this one. And it's not in the manual, so I can't remember where it came from, but maybe some of the other old timers here might remember this. It's a little hard to read, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think I got a copy of that.
Yeah, I seem to recall like some Radio Shacks actually had this around in the store in the early days.
Well, I think it's on the SDC.
Oh, the main image with everything
disc.
on it?
Yeah, the big disc. I seem to recall that.
I'll play the whole thing there, but kind of gives you an idea. But it's basically just a demonstration of what you can do in Extended Basic. So it's got some music, it's got some graphics, it draws a picture of a TV with some animations in the middle of it, etc. So just using basic statements, no poking or anything. But it's one I do remember seeing in the store on occasion. So I'm sure Radio Shack had it. I just don't know what the source of it is. Mark, do you know? Was that something that Radio Shack distributed or just?
I don't remember it in the store. I just remember it being on the
On the
running
arcade?
that on the STC.
Okay. Next up, this is kind of exciting. So Glenn Hewlett, of course, he's famous for doing a variety of transcodes, from Joust to Robotron to Defender to Pac-Man. And now he's porting another game, but it's not an arcade game this time. It's from the Amiga. And for those of you that are familiar with the Amiga, there's a game called Rick Dangerous. And this is actually, I could have put this in the game news, I guess, too, because it's kind of an announcement that he's working on it, but it's more a technical detail because he found a little trick, which I won't go into full explanation here. You can read the article to get the glean what the knowledge of it is. But basically, it's a way to do some math to calculate an offset onto a graphics screen, a CoCo 3 graphics screen, so a larger one, based on X and Y coordinates, and a little math trick you can do to do the offset if you set your game to run in a 256 by 192 or 200 or 225 mode rather than 320 mode. So you're basically cutting the sides off a little bit. It's more like a CoCo 2 resolution horizontally, but still full 16 colors. And it's a math trick that actually saves on that calculation. Like it cuts the number of CPU cycles required to do it by more than half. So if you got a lot of sprites and stuff, this actually would save you a fair bit of time to program. For those of you that are watching on the video, though, I will show. Here's a screenshot of the Amiga game itself, and the Amiga, by the way, used the same 256 pixel wide trick. They actually just drew black bars on the left and right hand sides of the screen. Or maybe they have their own 256 mode. I'm not sure. Nick, you might know, you're more familiar with Amiga than I am. But here's what it looks like on the CoCo by comparison on the CoCo 3, which is pretty close. I mean, obviously we don't have as many shades of gray as the Amiga does and stuff here, but it looks pretty good.
Not bad,
So,
yeah.
definitely looking forward to that one. And then here's the actual technical details and various ways that he implemented it to speed it up. So his original versions were taking like 23 cycles just to do the calculation. And then by the end, he gets it done in 10. Using this little trick of flipping the X and Y into opposite bytes and then doing one shift that does a divide by 2 on one and a multiply by, what is it, 64 or 128 on the other? Basically by shifting it into the other byte entirely to do the... I actually use that trick in Petsky Robots too when Jay and I were working on it. Anyway, real cool to hear that he's actually working on something else. I know he said he wasn't a big fan of the rest of the Williams games that use the 6809, so he's jumped up to the Amiga 68000 and he's working on that. I will mention one other thing I should have mentioned before I took the screen off. He's not putting himself under any hardware limits this time. So in previous transcodes he's done, he's always tried to make it run on a 6809 and 512K. On this particular one, he says he wants to take the training wheels off. He's going 6 through 9, 2 mega RAM, and using the streaming feature on the CoCo SDC. So what he can do when he combines all that, considering what he's done on a plain 6809 512K before, I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do with that. And Nick, you've actually are familiar with the Rick Dangerous game. What can you tell us about the game itself?
It's a great game. It's a game. It's available on 8-bit computers as well. The Spectrum, the Amstrads, the Commodore 64s. So it's a good game to convert to another 8-bitter like the CoCo. But it's a fun game. It's a platform game. It is pretty hard, but it's well done. There were
so do you think he's taken the right route of converting it from the Amiga, or should he have converted it from a C64 or an Amstrad or something, do you think?
Well, the fact that he's using a 6309 may make it a bit easier to get the direct Amiga 68000 code, I guess. I guess it works either way, but the other ones, I mean, what are you going to convert? The Commodore 64 version, that's 6502. That'd drive me mad. Or Z80. And, I think a 6309 to a converting from a 68,000 may be a bit more interesting and possible.
Okay.
But it was a good game. It was very popular back in the day, and there was actually 2 Rick Dangerous games. There was a sequel, but I don't know if he ever plans to do that.
Okay. I know he mentioned in the blog post there that the Amiga original actually uses the 4-voice mod player. So 4 simultaneous digitized instruments. And I was talking with him in the chat because he's got chat enabled on his blog there because he was trying to figure out if he could actually pull that off in real time, even with the 639 in native mode with 2 mega RAM. And he thought he might have to do loop samples. But then he was kind of thinking about it afterwards, and we were talking about is that he might just use the streaming feature in the CoCo SDC because then you can pre-mix. Yeah, you can pre-mix the samples so that basically all 4 voices are already pre-combined. So you just load and throw it on the DAC. So it's going to take no CPU time at all to do a full 4-voice.
Yeah, that's the big advantage of that because he will lose a lot of CPU time if he tries to do it in real time. I mean, I've tried doing that in my games, and you do lose a bit of CPU. But the streaming, no one's used that. I've been wanting to use that as well. But I'll be very curious to know what that comes out as.
Yeah, I also talked to him, and we talked about this, Nick, too, when you were talking about using the streaming, is the fact you could actually make an Orchestra 90 stereo 8-bit version, too. And he's seriously considering doing that, too. So you might actually have 2 versions. Yeah. One that actually has stereo music in the background, panning left and right on the CoCo type thing with an Orchestra 90 pack.
Well, being streaming, you're not really doing any processing of the sound.
You're just doing a load D and a store D, basically.
Yeah, that's right. Just reading.
It even does the auto increment automatically, so it's almost no CPU time at all.
So all the work's been pre-done, pre-rendered, and all you're doing is just streaming the sound.
Yeah, the only thing we've seen that really does that, I think, is some of Ed Snyder's own demos. Like he did that CoCo 121, which does that animated Japanese music video that had full, I think it was 10 to 15 frames per second of graphics in P mode 4, plus pre-rendered, full voice mixed. Except I think in that case he's using the 6-bit DAC. But yeah, there's some pretty cool stuff you can do that. You were even mentioning at one time in private that somebody should actually try to do like say Dragon's Lair.
Dragon's Lair, yeah.
Because you could stream the video across really fast that way too, intermingled with the actual sound effects, etc., and actually have it play at full throttle.
Yeah.
16 color mode. So that'd be interesting too.
So that's a feature of the SDC that really hasn't been exploited yet. So I'd be very curious to see what
not in the game. Yeah, I mean Ed's done a few video and music demos, but
implementing it into a game, say, would be great.
Yeah, I agree.
And it just means that you can have a game with great graphics on the CoCo 3, but still have really good music because you pre-compile the music, so it'll be, or just basically you can take an MP3 file, convert it into a downsample it to an appropriate WAV file, and then you just stream it because it's stored on the SD card, not in the CoCo, and it just streams it off the SD card. Straight to
And
the
you
CoCo.
basically
So
you're not streaming it directly to the hardware. Like you're streaming it. You load the byte, then you can mix your own sound effects from within the game itself.
Yeah,
as if it's just a 2-channel game, and it'll sound like it's a 5-channel, 4-voice music plus your sound effects or whatever, and take them out of the CPU time that a 2-channel would do.
That's right. So that's what I'm hoping to do with this other game that you keep annoying me about, Tom, that I'm gonna eventually get round to doing. So you can create.
Yeah, keep pestering him, please.
Yeah,
he never listens
I'll
to
get
me.
onto it. I'll
Get to
onto
work,
it.
Nick. What are you doing here? You should be working on the game.
Yeah, not this.
I was
Nitroid
doing the OS9
crap.
thing. No.
Yeah, but you're working on the wrong game.
Yeah, I was, but
anyway, really interested to see where he's going to go with that, especially now that he's taking the training wheels off and he's going all out with like he said, he was always trying to see what he could have pushed the hardware back from the 80s to do, and now he wants to push the hardware from what we have now without cheating and going to like FPGAs and stuff that are overclocked like mad with simulated chips instead of, but actually using a real CoCo with the real hardware we're hooking up to it nowadays.
And the good thing about the CoCo SDC is that it is a bit more native to what the CoCo could always do. That is, playing a sample is more native than, say, plugging a sound chip into the CoCo, because the CoCo really is not. It wasn't ever born with the sound chip. It was always an add-on, but it could always do sound samples.
Yeah.
So with the CoCo SDC, you're just taking that very same thing to another level. So,
and to be honest, we did have one CoCo that never officially got released.
that
would have had
deluxe.
a sound chip, the deluxe.
Yeah. But that would give you games that run on a CoCo 3 that I reckon might even sound better than what they do on a Commodore 64.
Or an Amiga.
Yeah, it depends on the sample rate, because you are still interrupting the CPU to read the stream. So there is still a bit of CPU overhead. But the fact that if you
But you're right now, you've done 2 and 3 channel games at what, 7.5, 8 kilohertz?
Yeah, and that's fine for sound effects. Gunshots, explosions, you can get away with it fairly well. Music, though, trying to get that really clean note, though, the higher the sample rate, the better. But you can fudge it to around 11 kilohertz.
I mean, Sockmaster's mod player, the 609 version, actually gets you up to 10 kilohertz.
Yeah,
in software,
you can get
but that's
away
just
with it.
doing music.
Yeah, you can get away with it if you can get. Depends on your game, how much overhead the game has.
Yeah. No, definitely looking forward to it.
Looking forward to that. Yeah.
It's something to get light a flame under Nick there to get going on this other game.
Well, you wait, NitrOS will blow your socks off.
It'll blow, all right.
Promises.
Actually, you could even use the CoCo SDC streaming to do background music on a CoCo 1 and 2, so you could use it for.
You could, exactly.
NitrOS.
That's another thing.
That could be your trial run before you do a real game. Okay,
that's right. You could do 7 kilohertz or even 14 kilohertz interrupt-driven streaming from a CoCo SDC on a CoCo 1 and 2.
Yeah, which Ed demonstrated in that one video we talked about earlier. Anyway, enough of that.
Yeah, enough of that. Okay, back to NitrOS.
Okay, I'm not sure who this guy is, and we've covered him a bit before, but Yagi Boat on YouTube did a follow-up about running his backbit cartridge on his CoCo 2. So we covered this last week, where he got it running with showing disk images. Now, one unique thing about the backbit compared to the CoCo SDC, because they both support floppy images, they both support hard drive images. with the hard drive image being more recently added. But the back bit also, besides the fact that it's cross-platform, you just get these little adapter cards to adapt it to the cartridge slots, and you can run, the same main board with the SDC adapter on a Commodore 64, on an Apple II, on a CoCo, whatever. Is it also supports cassette images. So it's kind of closer to, what's the Dragon one called? Because it also supports cassette. Pulling a blank. I'm sure Karen will remind us if Mark happens to see it. But basically, he shows it here. What's that?
MMC? Something, was it?
Yeah, I think that's right. But basically, the back bit supports that too, and he actually shows a little demo here, so I won't play the whole thing.
Testing the old back bit out. Got a new one over here. This is the one that works on just about any 8-bit system you can think of. Got it plugged into a Tandy CoCo 2 at the moment.
By the way, he's got a funny camera angle lens there. It's not his CoCos that work.
Awesome little cartridges. This is not a sponsored video, by the way.
The melty CoCo.
For a
melty that one really melted. He slept on the dash too long.
I want to see if this thing will actually load a cassette image. So let's try this one here. See if it'll load here. Wow, that was fast.
Now you'll notice there that it's loading a cassette image as fast as if it was from disk.
It's a text adventure based off.
So if you have any games that are not patched to run on disk and ROM doesn't work on them or something, you can actually load them as fast as disk anyway using this cartridge.
Anyway,
so that's an advantage over the SDC.
Yes, it does. It does load cassette images, obviously. You can see it going.
I don't know. Has anybody here on the panel actually seen or actually ran one of these back bits, whether on a CoCo or something else? Because I know they've been out for a few years on other platforms.
Nope. Big no.
Never even heard of one before.
No.
Mark, have you been falling asleep during our shows again? Because we've been covering this for like a year and a half now.
We have? Yeah, I must have been. 8 Bits in the Basement says something about a Max Duino. Maybe it's the one you're thinking of for the Dragon. Anyway, don't know.
Anyway, that looks really promising. And I know the developer here has actually been active a bit. Like I talked to her via YouTube chat months ago when we first discovered this. And she didn't even know that the CoCo supported floppy drives or hard drives at that time. So she only had cassette and cartridges supported at that point. And then she added disk, and then she was adding the hard drive stuff for doing stuff like King's Quest, 3 games, because it takes 5 double-sided floppies. So who wants to do that manually? Next up, we've got Michael Furman has done part 3 of his vlogs on Flex. So this here is if you want a technical deep dive into floppies, hello, David Ladd. And actually, David helped a little bit with this. But basically, the archive copies of Flex from Frank Hogg don't actually run. If you put them on a real CoCo, an SDC, or even an emulator, they don't run properly. So he did a deep dive into here to figure out exactly why, which he does figure out. It's based on the fact that Flex has a special single density track 0. That's meant so that no matter what drive type you have, it would read that track in fine, because the disk controllers on the CoCo, the WD1773, 1793s, can read single density. It's just set this bit and it's single density or double density. And they were specifically set up this way so that you could read the first track no matter what type of a drive you had for Flex, and whether it was on a CoCo or something else. And it would be able to read, I think it's called the SIR record. It's basically telling the geometry of the disk, like, is this a single density disk or double density, how many tracks, how many sectors per track, et cetera, et cetera. So it'd be able to read this and then go, oh, you got a double density disk in here, and I'm only a single density drive, so I can't read this disk. But it wouldn't just error out with an IO error. It would actually be able to read it and tell you, this is the type of drive you need to read this disk properly. So the archive basically had not set up to have a DMK style, like one that actually keeps all the track information, low-level stuff, like whether it's single density, double density. So basically what happens is that the first track on these disk images is only 10 sectors long because it's single density, and the rest are 18 sectors per track like a normal CoCo double density disk is, and they are double density. So once he figured that out, he actually redid these as DMK images, which retains the correct data, and he actually saves it so that track 0 is single density, 10 sectors per track, and then tracks 1 through 34 are double density, 18 sectors per track. And once he did that, now it runs fine. So he actually got it up and running. And to further on that, once he got it working, he actually worked with Karen to come up with a special, and you can get the links for this in the news notes on Discord. He's actually got FHL ColorFlex, Frank Hogg Laboratories is what FHL stands for, the 5.04 demo. So this is a little bit different than the 503 he demonstrated in the video, where he kind of figured out what was going on. The only difference I've seen really, unless there's some bug fixes I'm unaware of, is basically that the 504 supports smooth scrolling for the graphical text, which I'm not a big fan of because it just slows everything down. It might look pretty, but it's kind of useless to get anything done. But you can actually sit here and actually run it. And basically they set it up here so you just put start flex. There's a little button on the top here. You just click it. And I'll just show, just a very brief bit of Flex actually running. And Flex, for those who don't know, was an alternate operating system, kind of like OS9 was for the CoCo 1, 2, probably mostly. I don't think it was too much done with the CoCo 3 on it. But it was, I guess, a bit more based on CPM. So it's a more powerful, it's a real operating system versus, just a hack add-on to BASIC. But it doesn't support like multi-user, multitasking, that type of thing. So if you guys have ran OS9, you'll be familiar with this. You have to type in the date because we don't have a clock chip in this stupid thing. So let's do this.
I guess the big question is, why would I want to run Flex? Is there anything like that I would want to run Flex in order to specifically run?
Flex had a lot of, it was more meant for business people, I'll be honest. So there's a ton of utilities, there's a ton of business software, like the original Dynastar, Dynacalc, and all that stuff was on Flex. There's alternate languages like Pascal, Fortran, Forth, Lisp, COBOL, multiple assemblers, compiled Microsoft Basic, another one that it had. TSC Basic.
I didn't hear games in that list.
Well, the original Flex for the other machines when it first came out in 78, 79, basically they were all text-based. So you got a few games like, Battleship and, Eliza and that kind of stuff. So nothing major. Othello, based on text. Now, Frank Hogg's Flex, and I can't remember if the Spectra one or the other one, which name of the company is escaping me. They added graphic options here. In fact, you've got, I'll just do a cat here. So cat's equivalent of a dir. And you get to see the smooth scroll. It's sector-based, not granule-based. So you're not wasting as much disk space. It's more like drag and DOS in that way. You'll see these commands, CMDs, and then you've got some you can actually set the screen, like the X6432BW to set the text fonts we're seeing. So right now we're running, I think, 42 by 24. But they added. Sorry, go ahead.
That is slow, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I much prefer it without the smooth scroll. I much prefer it. It's just too slow. But you can actually do graphics stuff. Yeah, I actually added some low-level graphics commands here. So if I do FH logo, you just notice it loaded the actual graphic directly onto the screen from disk. That's why it was kind of choppy. But once you load stuff in, I mean, with the graphics driver stuff that's in there, you could write some graphic games. And with a compiled BASIC, for example, it'd be faster than doing it in disk BASIC. But if I do X64, oops. I think that's the right one. Oh, I don't think the other X should be in there. Maybe I better do a cat again because I can't remember the name of it.
We gotta wait.
I think I can break out of it once I find it.
There it is.
Oh, that paused. X6432BW. Unless it's a different key on the emulator. I don't remember. So this is now a 64 by 32 screen. They've got multiple different size fonts there, so you can kind of like, run, a decent text editor with a lot of stuff. This is on a CoCo Water 2 too, you're going to remember. It gives you a lot more text on the screen. And this is not a bunch of third-party software installed. This is just the standard, disk you got with Flex with the commands that are built in. So anyway, if anybody's interested in that, Mikey is doing this whole series of vlogs of going through Flex itself. The first ones have been, just finding out what versions there were for the CoCo. There are multiple ones from multiple people. And then, how to get them up and running because the stuff on the repository or the archive, I should say, was not working properly. And then being able to do it online here with a special version of Kieran's Xor Online. But if you want to explore it, there's quite a bit of stuff. If you take a look at the old Frank Hogg ads in like 82, 83, 84 in Rainbow and Color Computer News, you can see they had catalogs of Flex software that were like 30 pages long. So there was a ton of software. There's hundreds of packages available for it. And it was quite popular in some other, 6800 and 6809 systems at the time too. So, and some of the stuff will actually run on, you can take one from another different platform and actually run on the CoCo just fine. So it's an interesting bit of history. Once OS9 level 1 came out, there was a bit of a war between the two. I know Frank basically said after about 6 months, he preferred Flex because you could do a lot more with it because of the memory restrictions with 64K, because OS9 takes a fair bit of memory. But once level 2 came out and the CoCo 3, then he said, no, OS9 is way better if you got a CoCo 3. You can do a lot more with that than you'll ever be able to do with Flex. And Flex does have a special version called Uniflex that was released later that actually does do, I think it's multitasking. Can't remember if it's multi-user, but basically they added some other features that are closer to OS9. So you did have an expansion path to follow in Flex as well, but I don't think it caught on as much as OS9 did. Next up, Taylor and Amy finally got to the CoCo 3 that Brian Weisler gifted them at CoCo Fest. They also took the 512K RAM upgrade, which is an actual original Tandy one that they got from Sloopy. So thank you to Sloopy for that. And they also got CoCo Man's SCART adapter. So this video, I know I won't play too much here. Go check it out. It has the normal, tons of good humor in here. They actually try out some games at the end too. They're very impressed with what SCART RGB looks like versus what they're used to like on their old CoCo 2 composite type thing. They install the 512K. They play a couple of CoCo 1 and 2 games. Manic Miner, which does not have artifact colors, was one. And they picked, I think, Miss Gobbler, which does have a limited bit of artifact colors. And then they picked an arcade game for the CoCo 3 by an Australian programmer. Can you guess what it is, Nick?
Stuff. 0 Hour?
No, they picked Space Ambush by Craig Stewart.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Which is weird because they bought my games. So I would have thought they would have put
Well,
my games in.
they were just picking random ones they'd never tried before. If you watch the video, so they had no idea what they were picking. Back when they played it, they thought there was something wrong with the game or the joysticks here because every time you shoot an asteroid, it just sprays off sparks because they didn't realize you have to shoot at dead center to destroy it. And they didn't know about that. I think it's a space bar to enable your side guns and stuff so you can actually do a wider span, but it sucks your fuel. Like there's a bunch of things. But anyway, I won't play it here, but it definitely worth 20 minutes of your day to watch it. It's hilarious as all their videos are. And, they get a CoCo 3 they've never had before, upgraded to 512K, SCART RGB output. And I think they're going to have a lot of fun with it. This one here, I'll just mute it and let the person who created it talk about it a bit. Maybe I'll skip ahead.
Oh, God, that's me.
Yep. So you got this from somebody there at the fest,
I got
or
it
did
from, who the heck did I get it from?
Was it David Craker?
Yes.
Yeah, the guy with the flight simulator.
David Craker. I don't know why his name just escaped me because I was just talking to him yesterday. Anyway.
Old like the rest of us.
Yes, that's it. I'm old. Anyway, so I got this from him. It's just a little package he had put together and was selling at the show at the CoCo Fest. So I picked one up and added composite to my CoCo 2. Which I now know has a failing 555 timer in it.
Yeah, that yellow bar thing you got on the left.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those who don't know, this is the universal video driver, and it's basically a recreation of one that Mark Data Products did back in the early 80s, early to mid 80s. And it works on a CoCo 1 or 2, and basically upgrades your CoCo 1 or 2 from RF to composite out. Something that Radio Shack only did on educational systems for some stupid reason. So how hard was this project? Like, how would you rate this as a difficulty project for somebody either new to hardware stuff? Is there a lot of soldering to do, or?
Oh God, no! It's pretty easy. I mean, if you he doesn't, I don't think he's maybe thinking of doing more of these little kits, but normally you would just print the PCB up and put all the parts on yourself. The way he had it, he had already put all the resistors and everything on the board, and then you just had to solder the wires on.
That one looks pretty simple. You could just prototype it.
Yeah, it's actually already prototyped. It's already in the PCB archive there. You can just order the boards right from PCBWay. Which link in
comes
my
with the
video.
Mark Data products instructions too. Cool.
Actually, I got those off of the Power Computer Archive.
Oh, okay. And did you notice a big increase in quality, or besides the yellow bar thing?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, it's not perfect, but actually, David said it seems to work way better on the CoCo 1 than it does on the CoCo 2.
Oh, really?
I haven't tried it on the CoCo 1 yet, but I mean, it's not perfect, but it definitely increases the the picture a lot and makes everything easier to capture too. And actually, on Thursday's live Game On, I was using my CoCo 2 to play the games. So
yeah.
So you're actually using the composite out from this to feed into your capture device?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because it looked like it when I saw the video. I actually picked one up also, and I'm going to be doing an install on it soon. And I guess I should probably do a video on it, but I'm going to modify mine a little bit. I'm not going to use the jumpers and the things that he.
Well, I like the jumpers because this way I can just take it off and put it on one of my other computers if I need to. Like if I want to capture video off of my CoCo 1, I can just pop it over to that.
All official upgrades have J clips. It's required.
Yeah, actually, Scooby, if you get to it first there, you've got some CoCo 1s too, don't you?
Yeah, but I can make a simple composite mod for them that is not so simple on the CoCo 2.
La 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 la.
I was thinking about redoing the board so it's much smaller.
Well, the reason I was asking is that David had mentioned to Ken that the CoCo 1, the video quality actually goes up much better than even a CoCo 2 does with this particular board. And I was just wondering if maybe you could do a video just to show if that's true or not.
Well, I was going to actually hook mine up to one of my CoCo 1s, but...
Oh, you're going to do it? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's all J-clips, so I just have to unclip it from my CoCo 2 and clip it onto my CoCo 1. But I'm actually thinking of more permanently mounting it underneath the, putting longer wires on it and just mount it under the keyboard.
Okay.
If your CoCo 2 is missing the RF,
something with a
you can't do
bit
it,
more
right?
shielding too.
If the CoCo 2 is what?
If the CoCo 2
You need a bit more shielding on some of the wires and things.
Go ahead, Bob.
There was two people
The wires.
talking there, so.
Go ahead, Bob.
If the CoCo 2 is missing the RF adapter, then you can't do that mod, can you? I think the chip is inside the RF module.
There's only one spot inside the RF modulator that you actually hook onto.
Yeah, you kind of need that because that's the actual video signal.
An important spot, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be the trick.
Yeah.
It's just one of the resistors in there, but
Was to catch the video signal that it's made before it modulates it into.
So couldn't you tap it off the VDG itself, or is there some other circuitry in between that needs to be there first?
No, it's off of the 1377, 72, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So.
But you can get the not composite component video directly off the VDG.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But that doesn't work with this mod.
But not the composite. This is just an amp to get your composite video up to snuff and out the door.
Right.
anyways, basically it's making it a lot easier for me to capture things off my CoCo 2.
Cool.
Yeah, and this yellow bar was just it's one little chip that has to get replaced because I know I've seen this before.
555.
Okay. And how much does it cost you for the board? Like, how much would you cost if you say order it from PCBWay?
I don't know how much.
Like, are we talking $10 or are we talking 50 or what?
Well, you would get
$10 for 50 for 10 of them.
Yeah, $5 or $10 for a bunch of them, and then the killer is always the shipping.
Well, it depends on how fast you want it.
Yeah.
Don't use UPS. That's my only recommendation. Or you may not see it till next year.
But I mean, for a really easy, non-permanent way to do this, it's really nice. Because, yeah, that's basically the thing that I like the most about it is I can just unclip it anytime I want and move it to a different computer or...
Yeah, that is kind of nice, especially if you have multiple like CoCo 1s and 2s from that era.
Yep.
This one died. Clip.
Basically.
Anyway, go check out Ken's video, and you can actually hear him talk properly about it there. And Ken, I just wanted to mention Wizard Tower. You had the colors reversed.
I do actually mention that in the video.
I know, that's why I said it, because I know it'd bug you.
But I still have the problem with it, where if I put the colors the right way, then it doesn't let me load the game up.
There is a trick. If you hit reset when you're still at the basic prompt,
Yeah.
you can see that the text characters will either be a thicker black or a thinner greenish, dark green.
Okay.
And each of those is one of the two phases. So you can actually tell by hitting reset until it goes thick or until it goes thin, depending what you need for this particular game, and then load and run it. Then you don't have to hit reset after the game runs, so it won't crash.
Cool.
I used to do that all the time.
Anyways, it's a fantasy world, so I can have orange trees if I want.
The alternative is to have blue ones. Yeah, that's better.
So I'm either having orange trees or blueberry trees.
Now you're just making me hungry. Hey, on to the next one. So next up, we've got David Mitchell, who's been very active on MC10 and Dragon stuff. And this is one of the few that he's done that actually covers all three major platforms. It covers the Dragon 3264, it covers the CoCo 1, 2, 3, and it covers the MC10. And it's basically a basic routine library. And this is version 0.1. And he's got some stuff at the end of the video where he's talking about some plans he's already got for version 0.2. And basically, it's a bunch of subroutine library, or not library calls, but well, the library calls, I guess, but written in BASIC. So this is not using a machine language or anything like that. But he has stuff like drawing lines, horizontal and vertical lines, for example. But he's also got a couple of interesting features. So this video is only 1 minute and 50 seconds. So I'll play the whole thing. Just to get an idea of some of the stuff that you can actually use in your basic programs for like low res text screen type stuff.
Actually, I have a question there.
Oh, sorry.
Just pause there. See that bottom line? Press any key to continue. Notice how the spaces between the words are black. That's because you can't actually, when you try to print inverse text, the text comes out inverse, but spaces are still
in basic. Yes, you can poke it directly and switch it between the black and the dark green.
That's what I've been doing. I thought, is there a way to not have to poke it? Is there a trick on the keyboard to make it do an inverse space?
No, unfortunately, there's not. I don't think you can even do with a character string. I think you have to poke it, if I remember.
Yeah,
I could be wrong in that last part, but
that's what I was wondering, if there's a way, another way I don't know of.
Or you can get the reverse video routine that they gave in Rainbow. That's just a little ML routine. Doesn't even take that much room. It's like 40 bytes or something, and they just run it, and then it inverses everything for you lickety fast. Yeah, that's what I used to do. But anyway, he's got some pretty cool. Like I was expecting just like lines and stuff, so you didn't have to figure out how to do that. But he actually's got some pretty cool stuff in here.
Looks good so far.
Actually used one of the routines here to draw this, but and the thing is, if you write a basic program for the low res for the MC10 or the Dragon or the CoCo, it'll actually work in all three, so you don't even have to translate anything. The same library works in all of them. So filled blocks routine demo where you can actually put in semi-graphics or text characters. And same with outline boxes. So he's adding some, fancier stuff here you can use to draw graphics. So, I mean, you can obviously figure out how to do these yourself too, but the fact that they're all done and they're basically just Go subs saves you a bit of coding time. And then, like you said, it's compatible between all three of the basics. So.
There's those black spaces again. I have that problem. I was having to do pokes all the time.
So Are inverted numbers not a thing like you showed there?
They're not in basic.
and
That's
yeah,
another
in
one you have to
basic-
poke.
Yeah, another one you have to poke, yeah. Or just set the VDG to be inversed if you've got a CoCo 2.
2B or CoCo 3, yeah.
Yeah.
The characters are there. They're just not accessible through basic, unfortunately.
They're not, yeah, from basic, yeah.
And here he's the closing screen. He's got this development to do, and he says to do for version 0.2, more routines, more documentation, and fewer variables. So apparently thinks he's using too many variables. Which, I mean, once he does that, it'll take less RAM, so that's good. Hey, that's pretty cool. I thought it was kind of neat having a little library with doing stuff like filled boxes that actually includes text or graphic characters, and runs on all three of the main platforms. So you can make a cross-platform game without having to write it over again. And if you're interested in getting it, it's on his GitHub, which we've covered before because he's got tons of stuff here. And if you get our show notes, there's a direct link to this particular project. Next up, we have Jim Gary, which he converted 15 Puzzle, which was originally by Greg Williams in 1981 and appeared in Byte magazine, to the MC10. This is a simple tree searching artificial intelligence demonstration, which is too many big words for me, man. I don't understand what it's doing, but anyway, he converted it, so you can give it a shot. And I believe Byte magazine is archived on the Internet Archives. So you should be able to actually pull up that particular issue of Byte and actually read the article that goes along with it. And then David Mitchell also did this one here. Now, I'm not sure, but I'm guessing that he's probably using that library in this particular program.
Yeah, it looks the same.
And this is not really a game per se, I don't think. But basically, it's a forest fire simulation. And this is the MC10 version shown here. And it's based on a cell phone program. So it's not too often we get a port of a cell phone game to the MC10, but here we go. He does mention that it is slow and probably should be ran through Greg Dion's MC10 basic compiler to speed it up, because that actually speeds up basic programs like this probably 2 to 3 times. And Jim Gary uses that all the time. So I'll play a little bit of it. I'm not sure exactly what the game's doing. T, I assume, stands for trees. And the red, I'm guessing, is fire. And you kind of see it does it in rows as it's going down and doing it. Now, how this is a game per se, I'm not quite sure. I can get a chance to really look at it. But if you want to grab that, we'll also have in the show notes in the Discord here the direct link to get the actual source code from this as well.
Game of anti-life.
Now, on the Dragon side of things, we've actually got a fair number of updates here. So the first one, Phil R.B. Smith posted some photos on the Dragon Facebook group of a new dynamic RAM tester that he has made using a Pico. And I can fully test a DRAM chip in about 15 seconds. And I'm not sure how thorough this goes, if it's just a simple, write, read back, or if it's doing bit shifts and, anding and oring and stuff to see if you can manipulate certain bits. I don't know how detailed it is, but 15 seconds for a DRAM chip isn't actually too bad. And I'll do a zoom up there. So it's using the Raspberry Pi Pico, of course. I imagine this is more for the hardware guys that are doing fixes for other people's computers. I don't know what Rick and Sloopy, or Mark or David or anybody else, what do you guys do for doing RAM tests yourself? You just run the software and just hope that's not the bad RAM chip you're loading the software into, or?
I'm usually just trying to test it on the machine if I can get it to boot. Actually, this would be good for if you have a bunch of RAM that's not loaded at anything, you'd want to test it before you do something with it. Probably be a really good idea to have.
Yeah, that's basically what I do. Just test it in the machine.
Yeah.
And then you've got a Tandy adapter with 16 chips, and maybe one of them's bad, or maybe all of them are bad. Who knows? I'm in that boat right now. I actually got 2 brand new Tandy adapters with no chips in them, and I took the chips out of that one that I had that looks like it's been sat on by an elephant and put those into one of the Tandy adapters, but no boot.
Okay. Now he does mention here in the comments, he said, and now can do half good 64K RAM dynamic RAMs like TMS 4532s and Oki 3732s. Now the earlier CoCo ones, when the first eBoard 32K upgrades came out, some of them were using half bad 64K RAM chips. They'd use the lower half or the upper half. So it sounds like this will actually specifically test for those and make sure like all the upper half's good and don't care about the lower half and vice versa. And then he mentioned some other chips, including 4156s, which is what the CoCo 3 uses for its 512K upgrade, if I remember correctly. There's 16 of them. And he's thinking about trying some other ones too here. So I don't know, it looks like a pretty decent little project and a good use if you have a Pico already.
I have a literal box full of old RAM chips. I would love a quick and dirty tester to just go through them all. And
well, bring them to the next CoCo Fest.
There is one that you can use that's based off of a Arduino Uno, and it's pretty simple. But my biggest thing with it is it only tests 4164s and 41256s or 4116s and 4164s.
And there was an everything Chester back before the virus.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem to exist anymore.
Yeah, there's the Chip Tester Pro, but the problem is in kit form alone, it's like over $300, but that tests everything under the sun.
Well, then you can't get it, so there's that.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty quiet.
Bring them to the next CoCo Fest. My EEPROM burner will test chips.
Yeah, the TL866 does test some chips, but mostly just static RAMs.
Mine's a little bigger.
Cool.
Are you saying size matters, Mark?
This case, yes.
I like big drams and I cannot lie.
Next up, Grant Forrest posted on the Dragon 3264 group on Facebook some pictures of cassettes he picked up as part of a lot. Now, what is different about these, and the reason I brought it up, because usually if somebody picks up, tapes and stuff here, I don't usually put that on as a news item unless it's a fairly rare one. But these are all CoCo versions from the UK. These are not Dragon specific. They might be for both and labeled as both. But one thing I tend to forget is that CoCo games in the UK included some what I originally had thought were Dragon exclusive titles. No, they were meant for the CoCo as well, just never got sold in North America. So this is a mix of both. Like Trek Boar, obviously that's the Mark Data products. Graphical adventure game, same with Vortex Factor, Space Wreck with Spectral. But Two Boy Army, Tanglewood, Dark Star, Monsters, those are all Dragon / CoCo games created in the UK that never got here until decades later type thing. So, but you'll see like it says Two Boy Army for Tandy Corporation. They actually sold it in Tandy stores. Another thing that Tandy did there was actually sold third-party stuff. There's stuff from Microdeal. Design, we mentioned before, was using NitrOS9 assemblers. Dark Star, in fact, I think is one of the ones that did use it. Dragon 3264 and Tandy Color 3264. So these were meant for the CoCo right off the bat. And, had whatever coding was needed for the keyboard translation stuff that was a bit different. And I tend to forget, you can see these ones in the bottom here from Microdeal really emphasize Tandy, Tier City, 32K calculator, and Dragon 3264. So I sometimes forget, they actually had some unique titles that we didn't see here for decades that were meant for the CoCo off the bat. You didn't have to patch them. So I always find that interesting. Next up, Julian Brown here. Now, he did a couple updates on this. He's doing the Dragon reproduction motherboard. Karen did one and he did the other. One did the Dragon 32, one did the Dragon 64. And I think, if I remember correctly, Julian's is the Dragon 32s.
That's what I recall too.
What's that?
That's what I recall too. And Kieran did the 64.
Oh, I did remember that right. Good. Because I didn't write it down like I should have. So he's sorted out the video issues he was having before and is now working on optimizing the layout. So that's what his first post is about here. And then he did a second post fairly shortly afterwards, I think later in the week here, where he's actually started to do the grind work of actually starting to relay stuff out here. And he's also going to make it switchable between 32K and 64K. You still need to get an updated ROM, and you can't just use the Dragon 64 ROM because the Dragon 64 added a serial port, which is actually controlled somewhat by the ROM, and that obviously will not work. on a Dragon 32 that only has a parallel port. It doesn't have a serial port, like a real one, or 32 6551 based. So it still would need some modifications, but he actually is building in this board that you can switch it between 32K and 64K RAM modes. So you can actually have a 64K Dragon 32. So keeping an eye on that and see how that goes and whether you can get a ROM image made that'll actually support that properly too. With 64K, because you get extra memory and basic, if I remember, on the Dragon, which we didn't get it on the CoCo. I think it actually lets you go up to 40K or something like that. Free space for your program. Another Davies Retro Corner. This is called Scateract, and I think he's using his library here again. And this is from it's a graphics demo from the book 35 Programs for the Dragon 32 by Dr. Tim Langdell. And he's done some other conversions from the same book in previous weeks that we've covered on the show. And it's basically just a little animated graphics demo. I'll just fast forward a little bit here. So here it's using get put buffers with purposely missizing it. And Microsoft Basic on that particular case just distorts it. It just doesn't calculate properly where it should go. And it gives you some neat effects. I remember some basic games used to use this on purpose of resizing your get put buffer on a put to not what it's supposed to be. And it actually would make it kind of look like the thing blew up. And you can also smush it on the right-hand side of the screen and get the same effect too. So basically it's just a bunch of little graphic demo things here using that particular technique. And as before, he's got his GitHub. You can find the direct link to it in the show notes on Discord. And the last story for today is from John Whitworth of Dragon Plus Electronics. And this is him announcing that his miniaturized version of Phil Harvey Smith's DRGB is basically working. The screenshot he shows has the colors not quite right because he has a couple of wrong resistors, so they're a little off. That should not be pink, for example. But basically, this will allow, if you put in this board here that he's made, like basically shrunk down, and you can see little pictures of it, which I'll zoom up in a second here. But if you take that and you plug a Sega Mega Drive 1 cable into it, then you can go straight to HDMI. So it's a kind of like an alternative to the SCART type thing. And you've got some pictures of it. It's this little board that plugs in, and then you can actually run it through the HDMI converter. And you can, put the Dragon directly to an HDMI modern TV, much like Jason and CoCo Man Biz's, SCART adapter with the CoCo, that Taylor and Amy feature on their episode. Go watch that. So good to see he's got that going. He's got to tweak the resistors here to get the colors exactly right, and then they have everybody in the CoCo family will have HDMI output at this point, except, well, I know even the MC10 does if you go through the CoCo VGA with the VGA to HDMI adapter. So basically everybody can go HDMI now. And that's the end of the news for this week.
Okay. All right.
Sorry, what was that?
We're done, Nick. You can go back to sleep.
Time to wake up, everybody.
Okay. How long we've been at this? Oh, not too bad. We're still under 4 hours.
Not too bad.
At the moment.
I did get some goodies. Check it out.
Okay.
We'll call this a
project
slab.
updates.
A slab of keyboards. And
you want to zoom up, Mark, so they can see?
Yeah, as soon as I can find them.
Oh, find the button.
Bring back your slab of keyboards there because we didn't really see it.
Okay, so here's a slab of keyboards.
Now, are those all for the same model, or is that different?
Oh yeah, this is the CoCo 3 model. I have 6 of these now that I have to alternate between. So here's the CoCo 3 slab, and then what Deke wants to see is my pillow of network cards that came with the slab of keyboards, because I'm going to try to get some serial ports on those and get that thing going. And then, of course, you've got to get the vacuum pack of fingerboards for the keyboards, which I forget to keep doing because they're a separate order. And
Deke's comment in the chat here is, "Ooh, yummy network cards."
Yeah. With 16550s on them if I don't screw them up too much. And yeah, the show wasn't that long. I only got this one part off. the whole show. So
And that's a part for.
oh, this is a network card case top with the vents in it.
Oh, okay.
Because, you know, these translate into about 16 hours of 3D printer. So got to keep that going.
Cool. Does anybody else have any project updates or acquisitions they want to talk about? I know, Nick, you said that you're not ready for the next viewing of Neutron.
No, wait till we can get to a point where it'll just blow your socks off.
Take your time, Nick. Take your time on that one.
And here's my new game, Tic-Tac-Toe.
I'm going to do one with 3D
still
glasses.
better than Neutroid.
Actually, it would be nice if Nick would do Gradius.
Yeah, I know which game that is.
It's an arcade game.
Maybe
I know John and Aaron really liked the 3D glasses there when they were playing Warp Factor 10 by Steve Bjork at CoCo Fest there. So maybe we'll have to get Nick to make a 3D game with glasses.
Okay. Well, is that enough for today?
Yeah,
Does nobody else have any
plenty
updates
of
or
spectacles.
acquisitions? Sorry, go ahead, David.
I said I think we've had plenty of spectacles.
Well, in closing, I guess my big thank you to our guests today for coming on the show and talking about the third decade of NitrOS9. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate all the work you guys have done, and for keeping the flame alive when I recovered from burnout.
So is there a part 4?
Nope, not until 9.5 years from now.
There you go. Not yet. He meant to say.
Have we had a NitrOS9 EOU specific OS9 show? Like not
Well, pretty well every
OS9.
time I announce a new version, that's pretty well a specific show. So
Right.
we've had 4 alphas, 6 betas, no, 7 or 8 betas because of some 0.1 releases, plus the official EOU. So we probably had, I don't know, a dozen of them.
All right.
1-1 coming up.
Okay.
Yeah, 101 I'm working on, including that one special request from Rick that he's been bugging me since the 90s.
All right. Here comes the fire department.
I want the 90s back.
This concludes another episode of the CoCo Nation, the world's leading live interactive talk show featuring the Tandy Color Computer. For all things the CoCo Nation, visit us on the web at thecoconation.com. We'd love to hear from you. Send feedback, suggestions, even segments via email to show@thecoconation.com. The CoCo Nation Show would not exist without the community and its cast and crew. The CoCo Nation theme song, copyright 2022, D. Bruce Moore. Mixed, mastered, and produced by D. Bruce Moore. The CoCo Nation is over. Join us on the CoCo Discord server. CoCo forever. Bye, everybody.
Okay. Well, goodbye.
Yep. See y'all next week,
everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Except I won't be here next week.
Yoo-hoo! I'll be in.
It'll be a 10-minute show.
So a short show, yeah.